Hello, everyone, and welcome to the New Companions. This is a podcast for Elder Scrolls Online, and I have some epic guests today. Unfortunately, it seems Retired may not be joining us. He's obviously doing something. I'm sure I hope it's okay, and we will hopefully see him. You never know, in the near future, he might pop in. Otherwise, I still have two epic guests joining us today who have been on the show before. I haven't had Ninja on here for a long time though. Ninja614. How are you doing today, sir? You good? Are you well?
I'm pretty damn good. Thanks for having me, man.
No.
I just thought you didn't like me anymore. You never invite me on the show.
Oh, I was trying to find the right. It's always like trying to shush you. You know that's not true. That's not true. You're one of the first people who actually helped push me in ESO Directive. Much respect for Ninja Dad. Ninja Dad. Now you got to change it.
Ninja Dad.
What do you do? Because obviously this goes out everywhere. It goes out on YouTube. It goes out everywhere else. What do you do in the ESO? What do you do generally? Are you a streamer? YouTube? What do you do?
Generally streaming. I shitpost on Twitter from time to time. But yeah, mostly streaming. Eventually, I'm working on a YouTube series that's not so much ESO related, but very much streamer related in terms of how to demystify the settings in OBS and understanding how encoding works, understanding how the settings in OBS work and pertains to audio and video, camera work and things like that, and lighting to help educate in a way that people can find because you can't just do a video that says do this, because that works for my setup but it might not work for yours. So if you understand how these things work, you can find the solution yourself. So it's taken me longer than I had originally envisioned, because I'm probably just being a perfectionist about it, but
I think that's what people need.
Mostly streaming on Twitch. Yes,
streaming on Twitch. So it's twitch.tv/ninja614.
That's right. The biggest ninja
he is now.
On Twitch now.
He is. It's the biggest one before.
Your budget replacement ninja is still on Twitch, guys. You can get your ninja fix.
We also have Starkerealm as well, who's joined us. You were on the last show, weren't you?
I think I wasn't. Yeah, I was.
You might have been on the last too, actually.
Yeah.
I think you might have been.
Yeah, it goes every other week, doesn't it? So yes, I was on the last one. Yeah.
How you doing, man? You good?
Pretty good, yeah.
Yeah, awesome. And what do you do? I mean, people might remember what you do, but you do bits and bobs.
Yeah, so I co-host The Tenants with Kyle Dempster, who you've also had on the air. Yeah. And I co-author How to Fight Right, and that's general writing advice that focuses on fight scenes and violence.
Awesome. Sounds good. Make sure you check out these guys. And if you're in the chat live in Twitch, you can do !TNC, and you'll be able to find out the information about these guys. Retired is 8404. He is a Twitch streamer as well. I'll put his info in the description. He's here in spirit. We'll say for now. But yeah, so this podcast, now this could be a little bit controversial for a few people. And it might not be, because I've mixed in a couple of subjects, because I thought, I don't think it's going to get negative, but just in case anyone thinks we're talking negative about the game, I think it's, podcasts talk about the game, they talk about the community, they talk about the things, and that's what I like to do. So, again, these podcasts normally PMA, we're pretty I don't let anyone disrespect. Not everyone we have on here is pretty damn awesome. They don't do the things. But we're going to start off talking about what ESO actually does a lot differently, maybe, to other MMOs, and maybe even doesn't do the same as other MMOs, because, that might, not be the greatest thing in the world for them to do. I'm just messing around with my chat right now. There we go. Okay. So we've got Elder Scrolls Online, an MMORPG. Oh, you got your coffee.
And he got his quick high five.
For context, Ninja asked his son to get him a coffee, and he said we'd give him a crisp high five. Is that right?
Yeah, if you make me a coffee, I'll give you a crisp high five.
Parents out there, parenting by Ninja614. Crisp high fives. Get your coffee.
I borrow that term from Ninja Monkey.
Excellent. Lovely. Okay. So we've got Elder Scrolls Online. Obviously, in the past, I would say, a year and a half, Elder Scrolls Online popularity has kind of grown. I think Steam numbers as well kind of got to a ridiculous rate. I think about this time last year, maybe June, hit its highest ever. So ESO's pretty much, until recently anyway, was very much on the map, still is, in terms of a very epic MMORPG that's on not only PC, but it's on console as well, obviously Xbox and PlayStation, as well as being on the Stadia, whatever you want to call it, in the not too distant future. That'll be November, and that's Google's product, of course, as well. So they're spreading their wings. Obviously, we don't know what the implications of that are going to be, and we've probably all got ideas of what the study is going to be, but loads of things. So I mean, that's probably one thing that sets ESO apart from a lot of MMOs, especially popular ones like World of Warcraft and whatnot, and Guild Wars 2. Depending on whether or not you think that's popular anymore. I'm just wondering for you guys, specifically, I'll start with you, Ninja, as well. What sets Elder Scrolls Online apart from, and this can open, a world of answers, really. What do you feel like, I mean, if you want to say a couple of things that immediately come to mind, what does ESO do? Or how does ESO set itself apart from other MMORPGs, do you think? For you, specifically.
Who are you asking?
Yeah. You're the man.
Me.
You're the ninja.
Okay. Well, I could go on for a while about
I know.
it, but I said the three things that really sets it apart from me. I mean, from a context standpoint, I've been playing MMOs religiously, literally almost like a second job since the EverQuest days. So
Yeah.
MMOs is my jam. That's the kind of game that I gravitate towards. Is what I like to play. And in terms of ESO, what I think the three things that really jump out to me the most are, and not necessarily in any given order, but the active combat system. Really, I find that engaging and enjoyable over tab target MMOs, and a lot of MMOs use that sort of. There's like a million buttons on your screen. You just stand there and click the buttons in a specific order. And, you go move on, then you tab target to the next mob and you do the same thing. Where I like the fact that you've got to aim and position and roll dodge. And I like, some people don't like the animation canceling and all that fun stuff, but I actually enjoy it because when it allows you to grow as a skilled player. It gives you something to strive for beyond just clicking things in the right order. It allows you to, really work on just taking a rotation that's working reasonably well and continue to improve it and make it better. So that, from a player skill standpoint, just makes the combat feel more satisfying when you get it right. Also extremely frustrating when you don't.
Yeah.
But, I think conflict leads to a more satisfying experience when you finally overcome that adversity and you get better, so it feels good to improve your play skill in addition to the things that you've leveled on your character in game, if that makes sense.
So rewarding combat as well.
Yeah, very rewarding and satisfying. It feels it's just fun to kill stuff.
Yeah. Top reason. It's fun to kill stuff.
Yeah.
You better get used to that because that's something you do a lot. I don't like to kill stuff in this MMO. That should be like the main review.
That's what these games are about, right? You kill stuff. And the way that you kill stuff, if that's satisfying and feels good and is engaging, then that carries a lot. That goes a long way.
Yeah. I'm using that quote. That's great. Why was this MMO not good? Well, as Ninja614 says, it's not fun to kill stuff. So screw this game.
Yeah, it's not fun to kill stuff. That's good. It's going to run its course. You know what I mean? So
players are the most aggressive magpies. It's like if something's shiny out there, we're going to kill everyone in our path to get it.
Yeah, exactly.
Very true. Excellent.
And the second thing would be the voice acting has spoiled me. Every single quest and the writing, which goes hand in hand with the voice acting, is so good, and the stories are often really interesting. They often present you with some moral dilemmas. They are not afraid to go into some interesting waters in terms of storylines that sort of push the genre a little bit in terms of, dealing with, social things on an IRL standpoint in the video game. So that's really fun. And I like how they play with that. It's really hard to get another MMO that requires me to read the quests. And instead of just allowing the story to unfold in front of me and actually feel like connected to the characters. By the time I'm done with the quest, I feel like I've gotten to know some of these characters and I have an identity with them, where if I'm just reading it, doesn't land for me in the same way. So the voice acting and the writing in this game is so good that it's really spoiled me when I get into other MMOs. Almost every time, like immediately I feel something's missing if I go into a game and I'm just running around and and you just kind of hear this sort of the audio in general in ESO is amazing. So you just feel like you're part of a living world, and that the NPCs are almost living in a way, even though they do derpy things like NPCs do. But that's hilarious because they do almost seem like you're getting to know them. So when derpy stuff happens, it's even funnier. As opposed to other MMOs, you run to a thing, you read it, you listen to some boring ambience sounds, and then what I end up doing is just missing the story because I get bored and I burn through it, and I'm on to killing stuff again. And then the third thing, definitely certainly not last, and possibly as important or more important than the first two, would be the community in ESO. Having going back to playing these MMOs and participating heavily in the communities all along, I've never experienced something quite like the ESO community. It's really something cool. It's really something special, and I'm so happy to be part of it. I've really been enjoying it, and I'm extremely ecstatic that I've chosen to become a content creator in and around ESO, and get to be even more tapped into that community on a whole nother level too. So those are the three things that really jump out. There's more, and I could probably talk for a long time about it, but those are the three things that really make ESO in a separate class of MMO for me personally.
That's good coverage, actually. That was well done. Fair play. Good stuff. Stark.
I think the biggest thing is actually the level system. And this was something that wasn't there at launch that came in with one Tamriel. But the transition over to simply having, you can go pretty much everywhere. Like, there is a difficulty progression as you go through the game, but it's based on mechanical complexity of the enemies you're facing, not just stat inflation. Yeah. And that has a huge effect once you get to endgame, where you really can build a permanent gear loadout, and barring nerfs or buffs, you can keep that for years. I can't think of another game where you can walk away from, I can't think of another MMO where you can walk away from it for 2 years, 3 years, come back and be exactly as ready to deal with endgame content as you were on a build level, if not on a skill level.
I can think of one.
Okay, I can think of another one. I'm thinking about it, but that's that's been in stasis.
I know what you mean, but even balance-wise as well.
Yeah, for the most part, unless you specifically got hit by a nerf bat somewhere along the line.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you loaded up for PvP, you walked away with a full set of slows ready to go, and you came back today.
If you got slows, you're probably good, mate.
Slows is still strong.
It's
just not
it's not as broken as it was.
It's still real strong though.
Yes.
Another one that comes to mind is Sunder Flame, where that was and Night Mother's Gaze, where those were completely reworked, but that's still kind of the minority in the game.
Yeah.
There are a few cases where sets have been completely retooled. I'm thinking of all of the self-revive sets where you'd come back and it's like the set would still work. It would just be weird. But I've been running VO and Hunding's Rage for years on stand builds, and it hasn't changed. Like, there've been some minor nerfs to it. The duration of the speed buff's been reduced.
It's still got all dependable.
It still works. So yeah, that's unusual though for MMOs, at least in my experience, because a lot of times either the level cap goes up and then gear gets outdated, or the stuff, the new stuff that comes out completely eclipses old content, old equipment. So, but you were saying you remember one that sort of was an exception to that. So,
Guild Wars 2. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's one I haven't touched.
They don't do vertical progression. It's all stat.
I heard that's a dead game.
Yeah.
Ouch.
I know, that was painful.
Rumor on the street, that's a dead game. That's the rumor. That's what I heard on the interwebs.
Yeah, I did play the first Guild Wars back in the day, and yeah, that was the same story. You'd get to end game, and for the most part, you could sit there. I don't think the gear ever advanced beyond statistically advanced beyond base game.
It's just. I was gonna say the chat might react very negatively about that one as I play Guild Wars 2. But
I'm trolling.
He is just trolling, by the way.
Johnny, make sure see who's awake.
Look at his face. Okay.
Hey, we're in Jeopardy Ready's chat. Let's badmouth Guild Wars 2.
Audio wise, he is
cunning
just
plan.
being a cheeky bugger. But yeah, it's the I think some MMOs around that time, kind of 2012, above, realized that vertical progression is not all just about that. You want that kind of horizontal, which is good. But so it still very much has that vertical as well. But I think when you hit a point where it becomes, you can just focus on getting better at the game and getting skillful. But that's the only other one actually. But still, it's different because the builds kind of change quite drastically sometimes, and they just started to do changes. But that's the only one I can really think of that's at all similar. But I mean, you're right. But in terms of the running around the world and that, by being able to be like that level and running around wherever you want, I don't think there's any game like that. I know you can down level in a lot of games, but you can't go to like the end zone or the latest content, right? And run around.
And that's something that's pretty crazy with ESO, where it's with the chapters putting tutorials into the new zones and saying straight ahead, like, you just bought the game, you just started up, here's the new content you bought. Not here, here's this new content you might be able to see if you spend 80 hours playing the game. Yeah. And that's actually pretty substantial. It doesn't sound like much, but it's a lot for an MMO.
See, we can talk about that later because I've got a theory on that, whether or not that's actually a good idea.
That's fair, yeah.
Yeah, because it can have it's inclusive, and I think that's what Elder Scrolls Online does very well. They try to include everyone in everything, which is what they've essentially tried to do. One Terra Morale, that's kind of what it is, right? Everyone as one big community and group, which is great. But sometimes, if you're a person, and maybe we'll talk about that later. Actually, I'll keep that on the back burner for now. Continue. Okay. What else do you think ESO does?
This is a little bit of an overlap with what Ninja said a minute ago, but the writing is really good. Yeah, there's very few quests in the game that are just kill 10 rats, and the only place I can think of that.
All balls.
Yeah. The only place I can think of that actually fits that is PvP in Cyrodiil, where the quest you're doing is kind of irrelevant to the other players planning to kill you. Yeah,
it's just an aside thing, isn't it? It's just an extra thing, like, you really enjoy the combat, but you killed 20 necromancers or something, and that's cool. Yeah, you get a little cheeky reward.
And that builds back into the characters, where you've got characters that persistently pop up over time as the story progresses. I know that's not unique to ESO, but that is something that they do very well. And they've even been bringing them back in newer content, which is kind of impressive.
Yeah,
it was amazing and elsewhere.
Exactly.
It was like a reunion. It was cool.
And it's still continuing, isn't it? I mean, we've got still one big character to come back in the next one. So,
but I killed that guy. How's he coming
back? Did you kill him? Okay. Yeah.
I still want to know that.
I didn't kill him because he's bald.
I killed him because Lyris.
Wow.
He's got that sweet
She's
sword.
yours, right? Okay. Understand.
Lyris, sorry about your boy, but I'm here.
Wow, this is quite a revealing thing.
Yeah, and of course, that's one thing that they have not shown ever so far, because the only way to trigger it's going to be if you completed the main quest and then killed him. Yeah. And so the press event that was in Seattle last week where we met, we're working off a template. So the template hasn't even met him yet. You just come in and you get dialogue from him that's,
just be careful of spoilers.
Just met.
Just be careful of spoilers.
Yeah. Well, we know he's coming back. Like,
yeah. I'm just warning, future warning. I actually got in the queue for that, and I was right at the front, but I only got in the queue to talk to other people, and then I left it. Just before I was about to play, I was like, I don't actually want to play this. I just want to talk to people.
It was a long line too.
Yeah, there was a lot of people at that.
Yeah.
I mean, is that another thing? Sorry, you can continue with your thing. I mean, what you're both saying is, and Ninja started it off, is that you get that connection, right, to the NPCs and stuff, and in games like so many games where you can try when you actually connect to the story that much and you care about the world, and Ninja said, that living world where you're walking around and you're immersed. That's a very important thing for an MMO to have. If it doesn't have it, you don't want to go out into that world. You just want to kind of hang out and do dungeons or whatever. So it does bring that additional. I don't know many MMOs that do that very well, actually, in all honesty. I think the voice acting helps a lot. But carry on, Stark.
The final thing is just that it's a very striking game. It's not sort of conventionally beautiful frequently, but every once in a while you'll come across something where it's just like, it's amazing.
Like the views and stuff as well.
The views where you run across stuff. I'm thinking of stuff like in Fang Lair where you come in there and you realize you can see the entire dungeon stretching around the far side. Or some of the delves. I think there's a delve in Eastmarch where you get in there and it's like you can see the sunlight streaming in. And you've been going through this sort of really standard dungeon-like environment, and then there's this, and it's like, wow. So yeah, it's a very striking game at times. I do love that.
Yeah, and what Cyclone said in chat, Tea and Crumpet, if you look him up on YouTube, you can go and see some of those. So if you've never played ESO and you just want to have a look at the sites, it's quite good. Like, it just has music and just like kind of views of like different areas and maps and stuff, which is pretty cool. Yeah, no, I agree. There will often be moments. I'm a sucker for screenshots, like a lot of us probably are, and you kind of standing there, you might be fishing or something if you're slash lurk, I don't know, and you're trying to get your achievements done, and you just suddenly you're just like, wow, the sun looks really, really cool right now, and it's like, the water and everything, you're just like, damn, this game is flipping awesome. And then you remember it's actually quite old as well, and this is in like even the early areas as well. It's just ridiculously beautiful. I mean, I'm going to add a couple for me. I think you guys have covered the main ones. And a lot of people might not agree because this is going to lead on to Burnout earlier, but I actually like the amount of content that comes into the game. Some of it I'm going to bring up later that I'm not massively keen on. But the main bulk that comes in every 3 months, and the fact that they gave us a roadmap, personally for me, and in MMOs as well, I don't think many people do roadmaps for a year. And obviously Ninja was there. He was there on Twitch when it was announced, and it was a big thing. I mean, Ninja, you can probably tell us, that they've probably told you. I mean, even Gina and Rich, when I was talking to them at the ESO event, it's like, not many people do this. Not many games do this, let alone MMOs. I mean, it's dangerous for an MMO to do that because it's like keeping to it, right? I mean, like, damn, that's not easy. Like,
well, we've been clamoring for it as a community. It's like, guys, for years now, you've been saying we're working on it and we're going to do things.
Yeah.
But we never got to hear what those things are. And we never really got to see what, to be fair, I've had conversations with them about it, and they're like, well, it is hard because we try things all the time and it ends up not panning out. And so then rather than say we're going to try this thing and then it not pan out, we try it incognito. And then if it works out, we're like, hey, we did this thing and it seems to be helping. But other times, they tried this thing and it didn't help. So they feel like it's better to just leave it off the table than to call attention to it. And then we're all like, because as a community, this is what we sound like, so I get it. And so it is a pretty bold move to put out a roadmap like this and to tie some, admittedly loose. You're giving yourself a 3-month window to complete, roll out these things, but still pretty cool because there are some rather specific steps that they've put in there. I think we have to temper our enthusiasm until we see, because some of those things may have a huge impact. Some of them may not. And that's where you gotta, because fundamentally some of the issues that are I mean, one of the biggest things is the platform that the game was built on is aging, and there's only so much you can do with it in order to, and throwing more hardware at it oftentimes isn't the answer, because the bottleneck isn't necessarily the hardware so much as it is the framework itself is not efficient like today's software is. You know what I mean? Like the architecture of that whole platform would have to completely be rewritten, at which point you're talking ESO 2.0, right? So guarded enthusiasm is where I'm at. I think we will definitely see some improvements in performance. Is it going to fix it and make it buttery smooth all the time? Probably not. Probably not. There will probably always be pain points in terms of performance in the game, and that's just the reality that we're in. So, take it with excited to see some performance improvements on the table, and really hoping to see to be pleasantly surprised in how much it helps. But just kind of knowing how having worked on enterprise level solutions in the past, and knowing how difficult it can be sometimes when you're dealing with what's entering into legacy type, at this point stage in the game, 5 years plus. And you got to remember, the game's only been out 5 years plus, but it was in development on so the platform itself, the actual platform that the game was built on, is much older than that. So, and in today's age, with the rapid advancements in software and hardware, that's, we're talking legacy level stuff here. So there's always going to be some optimization problems because of that. It's just the reality. And so we got to be honest with ourselves about it. And I know the devs are dealing with that, because they're like, fuck, we got this amazing game going, but we're limited on what we can do to make it perform better.
A lot of people now are having those problems. I know it's very similar for like ArenaNet as well, and for Guild Wars 2 and tons of MMOs that I have dabbled in. But what Ninja is referencing, just in case you don't know, they did have a roadmap at the start of this year that was for like PvE and actual in-game content. What Ninja is referencing as well, just if you don't know, because you're listening to this or watching this and you're not sure, is that not only they have this roadmap for PvE content they're releasing in terms of maps, story, dungeons, whatever else, quality of life stuff, they actually have started this. It's called the Performance Improvements Timeline. Q4 2019 as an example, which is called Update 24. They're working on memory management overhaul, behind the scenes combat ability improvements 1, and a complete rewrite of the looking for group system. That's just one example. Other things in there: patching overhaul, frame rate improvements, server optimization, stability in Q1 of 2020, for example. And they're still working on, and they've got numbers next to these things. Like they've got like frame rate improvements 1 in Q1 of 2020. Q2, they've got frame rate improvements 2. So there's, I think a lot of this is Cyrodiil maybe as well, and other things like that. And it is fairly positive. It's, it is nice to see that kind of stuff.
It's great. Yeah, it's good. I just,
but you're, like
if
you say,
we go into it with a tempered enthusiasm and realistic expectations, as a community, we won't freak the fuck out when it doesn't solve all of the problems.
Yeah, well, that's the problem.
When we get done with this roadmap, you know what I mean? But silly me, I don't read the forums. It's a scary place. Don't go there.
Sucks. Like that's where I live. I'll try and stick that post that Starkerealm just put in the chat as well. It's on elderscrollsonline.com. It's in one of the news posts. And again, that communication is good, but tempering our expectations is I think, like you say, when people say improvements is a good way they've worded it there, because improvements isn't fixes. Because I think a lot of games do that, don't they?
But it'll make it better.
Exactly.
Hopefully.
As long as we see an improvement, then that's I would be happy. But yeah,
this is something they've been working on for years, because I remember there was some significant stuff that was implemented back with Imperial City when it first dropped. That was supposed to improve load times, and then that actually had slightly the opposite effect for me. But yeah, this is the performance war has been something they've been dealing with for years.
Performance
Yeah.
war.
Yeah, I mean, supposedly there were supposed to be significant performance improvements with Somerset because they had increased the game's ability to utilize multi-threading, and they offloaded some of the rendering onto the GPU. And on the PTS, it did definitely show an improvement. It was definitely running better. Problem is that when you got onto live and you had hundreds of players within a certain chunk, where the system had to keep track of all of that, it didn't realize into practical terms for us as a player to really feel like there was an improvement. And in some cases, it actually made the game perform worse.
Yeah.
So. And therein lies the problem when you're doing these kind of optimizations. What seems to work just fine when you've got a low load, it doesn't always translate into real actual improvements when you get to a heavy load under live conditions. So that's why I said, we got to go at it with our eyes open and be realistic about what they can do with an aging platform, so that we don't. Something else that's worth everything.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Something else that's worth remembering when we're talking about computer programming, when we're talking about designing something for a console, that's relatively easy because you've got one hardware spec you're aiming for. You know what the system will do, and you can optimize the hell out of it. When you're dealing with personal computers, like the PC you're running on, this is kind of a collection of whatever we managed to get our hands on, even if you're looking at a pre-built system that was produced by a specific company. So from a programming angle, when you're getting into optimization, you get some weird stuff with hardware configuration that makes it a lot harder to really get into tight optimization.
Especially because recommended settings, what was it? So many years ago was
that's
this.
Sort of,
then they
that's sort of like a Band-Aid over it.
Yeah.
Trying desperately to say, okay, well, this is what you're aiming for hardware that should run it, but you're always going to end up with some really weird stuff simply because you have different vendors, you've got different hardware configurations, in some cases different chip architecture. Like, it can be really complicated and doesn't sound like it. It doesn't look like it if you're just on the outside and you're not used to digging around in the hardware or the software.
And then the combination of things that work together in someone's system when that's all put together. If one thing, outweighs it, brings the performance down of something else because it's not doing this properly and not doing that properly, or it's just doesn't work together that well, or I don't know, as well as something else would, a modern piece of equipment. So it does.
Well, and then the hilarious point in programming where it's like voodoo troubleshooting, where it's like, okay, well, we'll mess around with this and see what works, but
Okay, I'm going to push on. But I like loads of stuff in ESO. There are many things which set aside
same
from other MMORPGs. I think a lot of MMORPGs have their own things. I think ESO does a good job at setting yourself. When I think we've kind of demonstrated that. I mean,
Pinky Fluff. If you have too many add-ons, that's what will peg one thread. By the way.
Yeah, don't have too many.
The game is multi-threaded, but all the add-ons run on one thread. So if you have a shit ton of add-ons, and particularly one that's behaving badly, it will peg one thread, and that will bring the performance of the entire game down because the rest of the threads have to wait for that one to finish processing. So check your add-ons. Try turning them all off and see if you see an improvement. And then turn them on one at a time, and then pare it down to the ones you have to live with. Sorry, didn't mean to interject.
No. That's actually a really good point, I guess, for anyone that's listening. Yeah, the turning one on and one off, just one at a time, is something I've definitely done myself to make sure that things are working properly. It's a good idea. No, that's an important tip. There you go. Tips with Ninja614. Should do that. You should do that video. Okay, so. I feel like kind of this question's kind of been answered, but just briefly for myself, there was ESO obviously started in the not greatest state in the world, and it did do a lot to bring it into its current state. Just kind of things like One Tamriel, even in the last year or so, just the amount of content that's come out, the roadmap, everything. There was a massive amount of hype.
I want to push back on that statement though, because it keeps getting brought up that ESO was launched in not such a great light. And I don't agree. I was there when it launched,
You
and
still
for a
don't
brand
agree?
new MMO, I thought it was a great game, and it suffered from what every MMO has, is that it takes a good many years to fully flesh out and fully build out an MMO. So as a launch, I thought it was great. Did it, a lot of people forget how dodgy World of Warcraft was when it first launched. There was all kinds of major issues. Like when the day released, they had a bug in World of Warcraft that if you, as a hunter, if you shot a missile, like an arrow or a bullet, it kept traveling around the world infinitely. So when you had a bunch of players on the world playing as hunters, shooting their weapons, it had to track all of these missiles that were endlessly running around the world and never stopping, and it brought the server to its knees. So and ESO didn't have nearly as many hiccups as WoW did in the beginning, and so the reviews I thought that a lot of the loud content creators put out there back when it was launched, I thought were unfair and short-sighted. But I keep hearing it keeps coming back today that ESO was not a good launch, and I'm like, I don't agree. I was there and I enjoyed it.
No. I mean, that's fair enough. Like, I mean, the personal opinion is absolutely, you enjoyed it. That's your experience. Absolutely. I think, that's very important to remember, that we all do have our personal experiences. And that was the reason, I guess the reason I say light was that it, unfortunately, if you look at stats, if you look at, the baseline of it, it wasn't a good launch. It was actually quite poor. The fall off was big. There was a lot of issues with things like combat, sound, hitting your target. It felt, just generally there was these kind of technical things that weren't great. The game was there. Like when I went into the game and played the beta, the quests flawless, the voiceovers epic. I'd never played anything else. I felt so immersed. But for combat and things like that, it was just personally, it didn't feel like I was connected to the world, and even connected to the ground at times.
Some of that was actually the beta.
I remember that's true.
I don't know which stress test you were in. I remember up until the last stress test, there wasn't collision for any targets. So
really?
Other players, but also not enemies. So you could just walk through NPCs, and that had a huge effect on the feel of combat, because it's you're trying to figure out what's melee range, but you can just walk through the enemy and everything felt kind of disconnected. So that was one thing that was kicking around in beta that really impacted combat feel a lot.
I mean, what I'm talking about is a general. That's kind of what turned. I did play the game when it launched as well. Just by the way, so you guys know.
Yeah.
It's not.
Sure, you did.
I did. Definitely did. Oh my god, I remember it so well because I was massively disappointed.
So
but it was.
Sorry, go ahead.
More of in terms of industry. And in terms of stats, in terms of everything else, even if everyone, personally, we all, we enjoyed it. There's people in chat saying as well. I'm not hating on the game. I play the game. I stream it.
Quit shitting on ESO,
bro. It definitely came back. It came back from something, whatever that thing was.
Yes.
And it was
agreed. Yeah,
and whether
it
or not
improved drastically in major steps along the way.
Because there were issues outside of that, and but like Ninja said, it's one of those things where an MMO has to, launch and then almost get its identity, its community, and then move forward from there. How does this community want to play this game? How do we envision this game?
Right.
Because if we got no one playing it, it's like you said, with the issues going from PCS to Somerset, it's completely different things. You can't just be like, right, MMO RPGs, people like doing quests, doing dungeons and stuff. We'll put that in. But the community does create a lot of what goes on. Without the community, we can't develop this game properly. So evolve it. And I think inevitably, that's what helped to make so many changes as well as just the ideology of the devs and, their own vision. I think there's some unique points of view there, which really drove it into, a better direction for more people to pick it up. I don't know what the phrase I was going to say there, but just generally, and again, I'm not shooting in the game. I think there was a lot of things they did to help that, to bring it to a place where it is now. I mean, I'm playing it now. I mean, a year and a half ago, I think it was just I'm just going to play this. We do a thing called the MMO journey. I play a shitload of MMOs. And I was like, oh dear, I'm kind of hooked on this. And then I started streaming more, and there wasn't many people doing, like, you know, in the higher echelons of the streaming category. I think there was Ninja. God, I can't remember who was there. I think KE. I don't think there was many other people. There were people around, but they weren't like big like you guys were with the hundreds of viewers. And I think there was Kyle as well, who came along, and some other people. But you know, it's a lot bigger than it was back even a year and a half ago. So even in that time, they've come strides with, you know, content releases and whatnot. Anyway, it was just a statement. It wasn't really a question or anything. So I'm going to get to questions. Go on, Suck.
I was going to push back a little bit on Ninja's comment about the launch, though, because there were a few major issues that did screw with the game at launch on perception. One was the server stability. Now, it wasn't that the server was crashing, but it was that the servers were getting taken down for maintenance. I think it was actually bi-weekly. Like, they were coming down frequently.
Yeah, I guess I just expected that with a new MMO, having been religiously playing MMOs from the beginning and having been in all of them from the beginning, and you know, relishing checking out a new MMO and seeing how the devs respond to those inevitable things that are going to happen when you go from a test environment to a live environment when the game gets under load. I felt like, you know, I started ESO just like I do most MMOs with all right, it's a brand new MMO. I'll probably, if it's something I'm enjoying, I'll probably hit it hard for about 6 months. And then I undoubtedly will hit a point where I've run out of things to do, and I'll go play something else for a while and allow them to catch up, because, you know, hardcore MMO players all have that problem. We always surprise the devs with how quickly we get to end game and how quickly we're looking for the next phase of stuff to do, and it's not ready, right? So I expected things like regular maintenance. I expected things like regular patch. I guess I just am used to the MMO launches like that. And in comparison to some of the ones that I did, where I was like, wow, this is really bad. I thought ESO was pretty good as far as an MMO goes. You know, and ESO was launching around the time when everybody was doing MMOs because everybody wanted the WoW MMO gravy train.
Yeah.
You know, now everything's live services, open world, endless.
Guys, it's all MMO's fault.
That's what everything is now. But it's that model is the MMO model. They're trying to take games that aren't MMOs and monetize them as if they're MMOs, and it doesn't work. But
even single player games now, you can just buy. There's cash shops. There's flipping. You know, there's loads of stuff.
So I'm not saying it was all roses and that it was a perfect launch, and you know, but in terms of an MMO launching, I thought it was a great game to start. Like, it was a fantastic foothold for them to begin. And a lot of the ranting and the content creators that to me just felt like they took the opportunity to generate views, because a lot of those content creators know that negative, angry rants generates money and views for them. But I thought it was unfair because it was over the top. It was not being objective. It was being inflammatory for the sake of, hey, this will get me eyeballs. So
I mean,
well, that certainly describes the Joe Vargas review. Remember
exactly?
That?
Oh yeah.
Oh, Vegas. Angry
Joe. Yeah.
I mean, there was a point in that video. I mean, his name is Angry Joe. I mean, he's supposed to be that way as well, I guess. I mean, it's kind of what he does. I mean, it is. That's his thing. But I mean, that's just a case of now, isn't it? It's like Anthem, you know, that was done to death. Felt awful. I was like, Jesus Christ, like you're making me want to. What? There's no need for this. Like, it's so they know that the game. Obviously, that's a different level. Anthem, you know, my heart's still broken with that game. But
well, yeah. I mean, there's also looking at the publisher. If we're talking about like launches, there are certain publishers that I have faith will wait and stick it out and allow the devs the time and the runway to get to the point where it's going to be, you know, fully realized and ready to go. There are certain publishers out there that are so focused on monetization and so focused on quarterly results that You got a game that has a rough launch because it's unfinished. There's a difference between MMOs inherently are going to be launched unfinished because they'll always unfinished.
Yeah, they'll never be
they
finished,
never get to the point where they're
closed
down. Done. You got all these new games where they aren't even close to being ready for launch that are getting launched, and we're expected to pay full price for it, and then continue to spend more money. And then it has a shitty launch. It doesn't go well because it wasn't ready, and then the publishers get frustrated because there wasn't any money, and they yank it. So there's again, ESO, I knew back with the Bethesda ethos and their general approach to things was they aren't going to just walk away even though it's got some technical issues. So
they definitely they couldn't have done that. No way. They still wouldn't. They wouldn't have done. They would have just kept that game going forever. I mean, it was just like, I don't think it would have just been awful for them. It's like Fallout 76. Even if it would had like hardly any people playing it, I think that game would still be going. I just don't think they close it.
And 76 is like they're still putting a lot of dev work into that game.
Absolutely. I mean, they absolutely had to. But I had fun with it. I mean, I guess I can compare it maybe to Fallout 76 on launch. And there were a lot of issues, but I did have a lot of fun just sitting in the game and playing it. So it's all very personal opinion based. I think generally in the industry there was, because of things like stats as well and the numbers and everything else, and even when I was speaking to devs and stuff like that, they can they'll kind of just nod to me and they'll be like, yeah, we weren't happy with that. There were things in the game that were not good. Not good, but there were things in the game which we weren't happy with. And but that's where you see the real meat of a company, and when you see the meat of the devs and the work that they put in. And you know what? To a degree, maybe there was a good thing they went through that process, because I mean, they pulled it out the bag really in the end, to be fair, in my personal opinion, and I'm pretty sure you guys probably agree, even if you love the game on launch, it's still a better game now than it was then. I think we can undeniably. But yeah, I mean, that's the important thing. I mean, there's not many games that can do that over that amount of time and then come back and be like, this is where we are now, winning awards. It's like, I mean, if you'd ask any of those YouTube guys, like, do you think they're going to be winning multiple awards in 2019 for like best MMORPG? Probably not. They would have said that, it would be dead game.
I mean, people were calling it a dead game at the time. They were saying, oh yeah, WildStar will kill this. And it's like, how'd that go?
Oh god. The WildStar had its very awesome little quirks, and it was a lovely game. But they messed that up with subscribing, unfortunately, and some other things. Yeah, that's another heartbreak, unfortunately. Oh god, WildStar.
Yeah.
Oh, I feel so bad. There you go. It's Carbine, wasn't it? I think, something like that. Okay. So, what has ESO done to influence the MMO market in a positive way? Do you think that ESO has influenced other games at all? Do you think it's, had a positive hit on the MMO market? Is it like...
What MMO market?
That's actually a good question. That's actually a good answer.
Let's be real. There is no MMO market.
Why do you say that? Continue with your point. I'm not saying whether or not I agree or disagree. I just want to know your opinion.
I mean, look at who's left. We've got WoW, which had to take a step back and release something that's 15 years old to generate hype again. And to help generate the revenue. And you've got Final Fantasy 14 and ESO. You've got Black Desert Online, which is a pay-to-win grind fest that's punishing to the player. That's what we've got. There are some little ones out there that are hanging on. You got Lord of the Rings Online, which is
good.
Talk about dated platforms and is struggling. But it's, that the market doesn't really... exist. You literally got one hand of games that are true MMOs that are still in operation, and Guild Wars 2 is all kidding aside, in trouble. So influencing the MMO market. I think they're all just trying to keep the MMO players that they do have excited. What I do think ESO does a great job is generate interest and get new players into the game still today, which is really great. I feel like they could do some improvements in terms of how they're handling end game to retain players, to keep these feast or famine sort of. If you look at the ESO directory in terms of as a metric for what's the current hype of the game, it's this massive roller coaster of a sine wave. It goes mega hype, and then the lows are mega lows, and that has a lot to do with the end game shenanigans and how they're handling that stuff. So I hope they're learning lessons and will continue to adjust and adapt on that front, because they're doing a bang up job getting new players into the game.
That's difficult, man.
Yes, it is. I know. I'm not saying that I have the answers. I have some ideas, but
we could talk about
it's one of those situations where I think MMOs in general are out of favor from the publishers, not necessarily out of favor from the players, but the publishers don't see MMOs as the money grab, because like I said, we've already touched on it. They're all in this sort of live services crap thing where you buy a single player game and you're expected to pay money into it like an MMO forever.
Yeah.
Until the next one that they release in the next quarter has the same model. Like how many live services can you be spending money on every single month endlessly, right? So to me that's frustrating as an MMO player, because I'm like, I have my live service. I have an MMO and it is my home game. I like the single player games because I can buy them, use them as a way to stave off burnout, take my attention away from that, take a break, for instance, and complete it and be done. But they all now have these endless chores and daily logins, and just can we just have a good story from completion to end, where at the end I'm like, wow, that was amazing. I can't wait for, the second installment of that game in a couple years thing.
It is a different market nowadays. It's very different. I mean, you've got games like we're sold. I think this is a psychology thing. I think this is the evolution of the media and social media and gaming and everything else. Where it's a massive beast, isn't it? I think the patience of the player, I guess, has evolved and changed as well. Like as humans, we need to flipping consume, and especially now. Just as in 2019, I think, it's different to 2004. I don't know whether I'm
without a doubt
not insulting humanity here, but I think it is a lot of the responsibility.
I mean, let's be real, people. We're not that great.
Yeah,
it's true.
I mean, we're shaped by the the things we're surrounded by. So there is the publishers. I think a lot of publishers have a lot of responsibility in this. I think people who sell us this stuff, because we are just human. We want these things. Yep. The faster we get it, the bite-sized chunks. All this stuff. Why Fortnite's so massive, and BRs, and that instant hit of like pleasure from playing in a game, you can get it again almost instantaneously, and then there's skins and all this stuff, and I think inherently that's MMOs are about, like, even though we're impatient, we are quite patient because we're still grinding, we're still trying to farm, we're still putting in an effort. It is almost like a second job, like Ninja said earlier. And it's it's very much an MMORPG is not just for Christmas. It's not. You can play it and you can try it, but the one that sticks with you is it's for a lot of people, it's their life as well. It just is, actually, and it gives a lot of solace.
There's 7 billion people on the planet, all growing all the time. There's rough estimates, something like 350 to 400 million gamers worldwide that would be classified as a gaming, that's their chosen form of their primary go-to form of entertainment. There's plenty of room to get more gamers into the fold, and it's growing all the time. And on top of that, that's a large sample size. But when you have game companies whose entire focus is now on, because it has become big money, that now all the money people have gotten into it, and it has sort of bastardized the focus of rather than making great games, it's about how can we monetize the shit out of it. There's a market for great meaty games that you can bookend, start, complete. It's really great. Get excited and wait for the next one. There's a lot of players out there that would totally spend money to buy and play that game.
Like you say, yeah, they do that. They do
but there's just not that many titles like that coming out anymore, because it's become all about how much money can we make as opposed to how great of a game can we make.
I mean, hopefully,
when you have game companies who make a game, who then intentionally put in a hurdle to make the game challenging and boring and shitty to play, unless you unlock this bonus item to make it not. They sell you a solution to the problem that they created.
It's absolutely true.
Like that's where we are right now. So I mean, the thing is, to your point, yes, humans are like that, and we want to consume all these things, and we want it to be right now and instant gratification and all that fun stuff. But there's a huge market of players who are also craving good, strong, great, exciting, groundbreaking, well-written, good story games that there's a desert for that kind of stuff right now.
Yeah,
which is why we keep going back and playing things like Morrowind. Freaking 20-year-old game, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, there's been some good ones like God of War and but Horizon.
Absolutely, and you know why? Those are platform specific. So Sony says, I want to sell more Sony boxes, so I'm going to allow this developer to make a great game as a flagship anchor to get you to buy this box, right? So it works because there and it's proof that people will spend money and even a lot more if there really is a great game to be had. But
ESO, there you go. It's full circle. There you go. ESO. This could be a podcast in itself. This conversation, because it's one I want to have. It is one I want to have because it is a very important one, and and then that can be a massive compliment to ESO.
I think side of this, I don't think it's so much ESO influencing the market, but I think it's a side effect. Because Ninja, you brought it up earlier, talking about the active combat. You ask what MMO market. When I'm looking at newer games that you can kind of generously class as an MMO, it's stuff in the live service that really does end up as primarily multiplayer. So I'm thinking of stuff like the looter shooters, like the Division and Destiny,
Borderlands 3. I mean, Borderlands 3 is like the biggest hype in the world right now, right? I mean,
and even stuff like 76, where it's like, this is still, you're running on server. It's not what we would have thought of as an MMO in the past, but it is still a multiplayer game that's aimed directly at... It's an MMO,
just take the RPG out of it, I guess. There's the MMO. I mean, actually, Fallout 76, funnily enough, actually bringing flipping human NPCs in now, and it's actually getting some of that RPG aspect back, but they've got the Battle Royale mode in there right now as well, which is actually quite fun to be
That's fine. It's another play mode. It's like that'd be kind of like leaning on Destiny 2 and saying, it doesn't fit because it has Gambit. Like, okay, it's a different play mode. The thing about this though is, and this is something Ninja's probably better suited to talk about, when you look back at older MMOs, a lot of it was held back by internet infrastructure. You had what was basically a chat interface, like a text chat interface, that was then had a game grafted over it, and you had to design it around the idea that people, in some cases, would be playing over dial-up. So when you fast forward to now, where you can actually have an action game, you're playing it in real time, and you can attach this to an MMO structure. Like, ESO is one of the major thresholds in that, where it's transitioning from, this is a game that's hotbar-based combat that is designed for extremely high latency situations, to this is an action game.
I think actually that's a really good point, because that does bring up the idea that they've gone through this transition of what Ninja's saying, what we're saying generally, of these games that come along with these live services, and they've actually adapted with it. And we can talk about the burnout and stuff and whether or not that's been a positive thing or not, but they've adapted to this kind of market of where there is a cash shop, there is all these things, but they're optional and they're not necessarily going to make you more powerful unless you do housing. And I just think that's the thing, if you want to shop for stuff that's going to go in your house, you pay money, right? I mean, that's real life. And housing is the end game, as shouted in chat. And I actually do think, that's an important thing to remember. Not only technology, they're trying to adapt to that, but they are adapting to the ways of human beings maybe now, and whether or not that's a good thing or not, we'll find out in the future, I guess, and also in the conversation in a bit. I'm getting paranoid that we're not going to talk about burnout because we've got about an hour left, or just under an hour, and we're burning out on the positivity right now. But I would say another thing that is very positive from ZOS is the amount. I'm surprised they're not burnt out, but the amount of flipping community events they do have. And like we talked about PAX a little bit earlier. Ninja's obviously been to a ton of these events as well. You guys have been invited to the studio. It's not just players who stream the game, but actually, forum guys. Stark, you've been there, haven't you, Stark?
Yeah.
There's people in the community who aren't just streamers or YouTube content creators. They recognize a lot of different people. And because they realize, this is what our game is about. It's a widely spread. It's not just on Twitch. It's not just on YouTube. It's about our forums. It's about a community in terms of, this big beast. And I think that's very respectable. I think that's something a lot of games don't do. They just invite the biggest influencers, and then, that's it. And I think they treat everyone with a lot of respect, like no matter where they're from and what they do. There's a couple of other dev companies, MMO-wise. I know ArenaNet are very much the same in that as well. And there are some other people who I've had interactions with like that, but I've not really seen that wide of a scope of inclusion. Really, to be fair, is a lot of like invite the biggest guys and that's it.
If I'm honest, it was really kind of surprising and confusing a little bit.
Oh, yeah?
When Gina first contacted me like 2 years ago and was like, would you like to come to a testing event? And I'm like, what?
It's amazing. That's great. That's good to hear.
Like, it's fantastic, but it was like, what's going on here? Because I don't stream. I didn't put out YouTube videos. It's just like, it was weird to me. I was like, huh?
But you got included, and that must have felt really fantastic, though, right?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. So that's good. I mean, he's been there. Like, Stark's been there to the play. Like, with Ninja as well, and all these other guys. Like,
yeah, that's
Stark's
where we first met.
Yep.
There you go. Fantastic. Oh, what's that in the back? Is that a cat? Or is that a dog? Is that your dog?
JJ.
I was like, I didn't see the chair because that monitor's darker and there's nothing. It just looked like it was flying. That was sketchy. Watch the video on YouTube or Twitch. You can see a flying dog. That's something that happens. Okay, so we know ESO does a lot of different things to other MMORPGs that makes it special to us, the viewer, the listener, the player. And every game has this. If you continue to play a game for a long period of time, inevitably, you're going to experience some things like you do in life. There's the ups and downs. Whether or not you want to call it burnout, whether or not you want to call it, being jaded, whether or not it's because of, our own personal feelings of the game, or it's something the developer does, there will be that time where you kind of, need to take a break or you need to do something else. Recently, this has become more prevalent. And this is not just coming from, this is not this is actually not a personal thing at all. I actually not burnt out at all because I know how to not get burnt out on games anymore. Maybe a little tiny bit a while back. There's some aspects I'm burnt out on, but not the game in general. And I'm not sure how these guys feel as well, because I think they're similar to me. They know how to, like Ninja says, I've been doing this for years. I know how not to get burnt out in games. But, I don't want to speak for you and say your opinion there, so I apologize about that. But, and maybe you can tell me if you are. But there has been there's been streamers talking about it. I've seen a couple of YouTube videos about it. I've seen people chatting about it in different communities. And, is this the first question I have really, do you feel that there is a lot of people that are feeling it, this kind of, I'm going to use burnout as the phrase, or lull in the community, or lull in the game. Is this existing right now?
Oh yeah.
It is?
Totally. Yes, very much so. And having had many conversations with many content creators, burnout was already kind of on the plate and then this update 23, which overwhelmingly has been unpopular among endgame players.
The dungeon
sort of,
DLC.
It just the update,
Outbreak.
the major, the combat changes, the sweeping over the massive. Took me 2.5 hours just to get through the combat changes alone.
It's
on
a lot.
stream.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a whole lot of wow. I was sweating by the end. I was like, guys, at the beginning, I was, guys, it's gonna be fine. It's just a bit. But as I went through, I was like,
how
Jesus
did you feel
Christ.
at the end? I wish I really want to. I want to go through that VOD at the beginning and just be like,
I was trying to be
competitive
calm
faces.
and cool and rational about it, and inside I was freaking out. So,
right. What was the feeling though?
and-
What was it like about? Why were you freaking out? Was it the worry of the changes?
It's a unilateral nerf and a complete and utter change to multiple play styles, and so that I get it. Balance changes. It's a weird place to be because I understand the reasons behind it, and I understand the desires to create some better, consistent numbers and classifications for skills so that you can do unilateral balance changes when necessary.
Yeah.
And so on the one hand, I totally get it. On the other hand, we've had 5+ years of playing the game in a certain way, and this fundamentally changes a lot of it to a point where those of us who've been playing for a very long time, there are certain play styles that for an older guy whose hands don't work as well as they used to, who's not able to keep up with these super fast, bar swapping, clicky dynamic rotations. And now these heavy attack rotations, in particular, this is one example. In particular, heavy attack rotations on the Magicka side have all been pretty much nerfed into the ground. They are really not viable for true endgame content in terms of being able to pull that off, which makes it difficult for those of us with limited physical abilities. And I'm not even a poster child for that. But I that impacted me personally. And multiple other players in my age bracket.
What's your age bracket though? Is this? You make out that you're really old. You're not not that old.
Well, my hands don't work as fast as they used to. I don't have, you know what I mean? Like I'm starting to feel the effects of being in my 40s. Okay, I don't have the same twitch reflexes I had when I was in my 20s, right?
Well,
so
yeah, definitely.
And so all of that, I could go on about the patch forever. I don't want to beat up on that. The challenge I have with it is that when you have a major patch like this that causes the meta to change completely from a DPS standpoint. The good news is healers and tanks, I feel like, are in a good spot.
Healers actually improved off of this.
I agree.
Yeah,
there was fear that it was going to nerf healing into the ground, and healing's actually in a pretty good spot. Tanks are in a great spot.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
But DPS is also in a good spot. It's just that two things have happened.
Okay.
Certain play styles that were viable that made it easier for people to get into endgame content on a DPS are no longer able to carry the numbers that are necessary to complete the content. Realistically.
Really?
Yeah, and then on top of that, it has rather than the intended goal of opening up more options for play and create more flexibility, it has homogenized it and made it even more like narrow in terms of what really works to get the same numbers we were able to get before. This patch happened, but then nothing was adjusted on the content side to account for it. So the content is just as difficult as it was before. But in order to get those numbers now, you have to do certain skills on your bar, and you have to do it a certain way in order to get those numbers, in order to still have the kind of success. So if you're a progression team and was trying to get through this content, just trying to complete it, and now all of a sudden everybody's build has to change, and pretty much everybody's using the same shit now just to get through it. Mm-hmm. I'm not worried about the top 1%. Those guys, the really, really super duper skilled, very knowledgeable, incredibly talented, work well teams that are able to clear that. They're fine. They'll adjust and they'll do what they got to do to. But so many guilds now
as well, aren't they?
Just walked away because they're like, we can't fucking do this content anymore.
Because
I mean, they can, but they feel like they can't because it's so overwhelming, the amount of changes that happen. So that's the thing that really, that's what I was talking about earlier about how the way that they're handling Endgame right now and have been with these, it seems like once a year they do these major sweeping crazy ass patches that just nurse the frick out of everything into the ground, and everybody just has to start over from ground zero figuring out how to play. And you have this exodus of Endgame players and veteran players who are just all like, I do not want to start over figuring this shit out.
So
and they walk away for 6 months or a year.
To your personal view, you actually feel like people are leaving the game at that end.
I know level. They are. That I can because they're telling me personally. I can look at my friends list, and I know of multiple, at least half a dozen Endgame guilds who are progressing through the content who have pretty much fallen apart and no longer doing guild runs, and that's happened in many situations.
That's not the top 1%.
No, just the players who are end game capable and who are just wanting, they're not trying to win awards or get the highest scores. They're just trying to improve and complete the content. And now it's becomes the goalposts have moved again, and whatever progress they were making has been reset. And they're like, ugh, no, like it just saps all the enthusiasm and the hype right out. And, there's like, I'm going to go do something else. I don't have the stomach for it.
The irony with this is a lot of it's going to make it easier for new players to come in. Like the standardization, it's not just going to help with balance changes down the road. It's also going to help with players like coming to grips with the game to begin with. Yeah. But what Ninja's talking about
at a cost of any sort of flavor or why it doesn't even matter what class you choose now. Everybody's running the same shit on their bars.
I mean, that is one thing I've heard.
Particularly on
the one thing
it's not a change. It's like,
if you want a bow, if you run like a weapon set or whatever, I have. This is something that has been. I know what you're saying, Stark. It's like a building for the future kind of thing, which is very important. It is so damn important, because I think there was actually problems before, a lot of problems with combat before that needed to have a massive change. Whether or not that the thing is with change, people, is it's difficult. Change is difficult, and even if it's easy or it's hard, or if something to get used to. I think, especially if ESO has been, like you said, Ninja, for 5 years, for you in terms of your own feelings, you've been used to this thing, the way that the game's played, the changes that have happened, and you're used to that kind of thing. You're, as you said, you're an older player. I still think you're very good. You know your shit. And that it's off-putting to have these massive changes. Which have been touted as something to be very important for the future of the game, but at the cost of vets or people who've been playing the game for quite a long time.
I'll be fine. I'll adjust. I'll find ways to do it. I'll do all but there are a lot of players who don't have the patience that I have, who are just going to go somewhere else.
Yeah, and that's the worry. But then it's weighing it up, isn't it? Like will we see, because of these changes, and we won't know, will we, for a while, whether or not that's going to be, like Stark says, important for the newer player and the evolution of the game.
That's the other thing going on here, because this isn't.
I don't know.
This is different from the last time, right? This is different. This changes with Somerset. It's different from the changes with Morrowind, because this is a transition from Eric's build of combat or approach to combat to Brian's approach to combat, because Eric's gone. And so now we're looking at where they're going forward from this. There is a complete overhaul in the combat design occurring.
Do you think this is a middle? Is this a middle ground? Like, just to put it in your head as you're talking about this, because I feel like you're going to say it, but I don't know. But like, is this like an on the way to something rather than like?
Yeah, they're not done with this overhaul. That's something that they have actually said a couple of times. Yeah. This is a full, I think Rich called it a full audit of combat in the game. So everybody's getting looked at, everything's getting changed. And Ninja's not wrong. It's going to be a different, like the combat is going to be a different game when they're done. And if you came into it and you're like, I'm not willing to adapt to what's changing, then this is not going to be a good moment.
It's true.
Yeah, I mean, it is true. I mean, it is, if you can't, like, and we're unique in this, I think, I mean, there are obviously players out there that will want to change. I'm not saying that we're just the only people who are going to follow this, but streamers and like content creators or on the forums or so involved in the game, whatever way, we kind of accept these things, or if it gets to a point where we really don't like it, we'll obviously change. And I feel like I'm on the opposite end of things, I think, to a lot of people who have these feelings. I'm very much on the opposite end. I come from a very heavy, like you, Ninja, MMO background, hardcore, but also PvP. And something that I enjoy content for me in Guild Wars 2, as that was and what is one of my main MMOs now, along with ESO, was a struggle for balance updates. And when I saw the balance update for ESO, I actually had the complete different reaction. My reaction was, fuck yeah. Like, give me this. I want to go through this now. I want to pick this apart. I cannot bloody wait. Because I'd not had that for so long. That, it was a welcome change. But again, I hadn't been playing the game for years. Hadn't, been settled in and had this expectation, this knowledge that, this is the way it was. So that's okay. For me, it wasn't massive different change, like, was it? I mean, it's like the PvP side of the game as well. It's something I really, which you enjoy as well. I'm not saying you don't, but it's just,
to be honest,
I don't know.
For the most part, this is actually pretty positive on a PvP front.
Yeah,
and that's why does create some tension.
And funnily enough, you said as well that for healers and tanks, this wasn't so bad. I've only just started to get my DPS up to a trial level. So maybe even it's there as well, where Ninja is talking about that DPS kind of experience, like that I haven't had. Maybe I haven't even got there yet. I don't know. Because like my healer wise, like my healing, I'm enjoying healing more than I ever have. Tanking is still, I don't enjoy tanking as much as I enjoy healing, but that could just be my own personal player preference, but I still enjoy it. But like DPS is not somewhere I've been a lot, other than PvP, which I find actually just completely awesome and fun. But yeah, sorry, continue.
Yeah, I was going to say, the only thing about this that I worry about, and this is something Ninja already mentioned, I worry that we're not going to get a lot of stuff down the road in the audit that actually enhances the classes, because that is right now the weak point. And he's right, like the mag builds have been converted over to the point where they've lost a lot of their identity. Stand builds have sort of been a joke for a while, in that they do have a lot of commonality between them. And yeah, that's a legitimate fear, because that's something the game needs. It's something they've started to do with the Necromancer, where it's got a very distinct identity on its own.
Yeah, it does.
Not anymore. Not anymore. Like,
can you say more?
Yeah,
like
there's a couple skills that it has that others don't, but everybody's running the same shit now.
Yeah.
That's the frustrating part about it. Now, they have said with the next major patch that's coming that they're going to begin the process of reevaluating class skills to try to get flavor back in. Which,
and that's that's what I'm banking on. Like, that's the thing where it's going to be the make or break.
That's the rub, man. That's 3 months of waiting to find out what those are going to be. So you have a huge patch with all this stuff, massive changes that brings, and then you got 3 months of playing, well, in my opinion, a very bland flavor of DPS. And the game is fundamentally going to have issues all the time, because the PvP and PvE are all sharing the same stuff. So every time you make things good in PvP, you have an unintended and an adverse effect on the PvE side, and vice versa, back and forth, because they aren't siloed where they really should be. If you truly want to objectively achieve balance in PvP, you really, and not completely screw over your endgame PvE people, you really do have to put them in silos. You have to make it so that when you go into Cyrodiil or you go into Battlegrounds, these skills, CP, gear sets, everything behaves one way. And when you're not in those zones, it behaves another way. But that introduces a exponential increase in development time, resources required, and patch times, and all that fun stuff.
You know this as well. You know this, like whereas so many people just don't know this and understand.
The trade-off for that is that comparatively, like you pointed out sets, and that's the big one. But comparatively, when it comes to the actual skill list, that's actually not that long for ESO. Like there are a lot of skills, but there aren't that many. So if you approach it at the top level of just start out with, there's 2 different versions of the skill, one that exists in PvP zones, one that exists in PvE. it's not as much work as it would be in something where you really do fill up the screen with buttons.
It is difficult, but
it's not as simple as that, because
armor
you've
sets.
got stamina DPS, you've got magic DPS, you've got tanking, and you've got healing, and all of these different morphs need to accommodate that play style in addition to PvP versus PvE. So,
well, and the big stumbling block isn't even that; it's the sets, because we got like 15 billion different set combos.
That's the big one. Because
Yeah.
you can't, and this is a separate podcast as well. I actually still feel like, you know, the fact that you carry over your gears from PvE to PvP is already a negative thing. I feel like you should just have a pick of everything, and you know, you can create something quite unique.
Your PvE set and your PvP set, like that. But see, that again goes into this idea of where really, if you truly wanted to work towards some semblance of balance, you would have to
it would
unmarry the two and treat them like silos. But I asked Rich that a couple times each time I was out there, and the answer was basically if you read between the lines, the answer is it's too expensive. There's no way they could get the money people to sign off on, you know, quadrupling the level, the amount of resources required to pull that off. So
they'd have to reassign people or get people in to do it, especially.
You'd have to, because you're not just patching on PC, you're patching on Xbox and PS4. So you'd be looking at dealing with the quality assurance explosion that would then be required in order to deal with that is a huge explosion in personnel, because now you've got to be testing it on PC, PS4, Xbox for both PvP and PvE.
Yeah.
And then you've got to roll out patches like that for all of those skills. So instead of just, you know, doing one patch, you've got to deal with testing it for all of these scenarios, which, you know, increases the requirements by four plus exponentially. So, you know, that's always going to be a thing. My two things that come out of this whole endgame patch cycle thing that frustrates me the most is we have to wait 3 months in between every major update. So rather than doing increment, you know, making changes and incrementally,
which I'm really glad that we have.
We got to wait 3 months, and then we got to, you know, it causes this major clamoring and huge unrest every single time they do it.
Yeah.
You
Can
know,
I ask you a question?
On top of that, it doesn't seem like the combat team and the dungeon teams are communicating nearly as much as they should, because if the combat team is going to make sweeping changes like this, feels like the dungeon team should be being more mindful of the fact that how is this going to impact your average end game player, not your top 1%. Stop making decisions based on what the best players in the world are doing. Make your decisions based on what your average end game player who's just trying to get through the content can do. Your top 1%ers are going to do what they're going to do, and no matter what you throw at them, they're going to, you know.
Is that your feeling though? Do you feel, is that how you feel? Do you feel that they cater to that percent more?
Very much so. Very much so. It has hallmarks and earmarks all over it of paying too close attention to what the top 1% players are capable of doing.
Can I give you an opposite idea?
Of course.
All right, so actually Guild Wars 2 and ArenaNet have been accused of the opposite. They actually cater to the casual player in terms of a lot of what this is. Again, this is an opinion, and this is the opinion of, like, maybe it's the opinion of the top 1%. I don't know, but I don't think I'm the top 1% of the game. And they actually go the other way, and that's actually one of the things that they feel like the game is. Yeah, the filthy casuals. It's a big thing in ArenaNet.
I'm not even talking about the filthy casuals. I'm talking about the legit. They want to do the in-game content. They're just not they're not winning all the scores. You know what I mean? They just want to get through it.
But like, even
right now, less than 1% of the players are able to complete the content.
Stark, how many people
are even doing it?
Yeah, that's true. He knows. Yeah. Stark knows. He's got the numbers. I've heard this multiple times. But yeah, I mean, it's difficult. I'm not sure. What I think you're saying as well is something I'm hearing when you're talking about the free maps. There's inklings in chat as well. And if someone could shout him out in chat, that would be good. What's that noise? Sounds like a bird.
There's a seagull outside my window somewhere.
Amazing.
It's getting picked up by my microphone. I'm sorry about that.
But it's communication, actually. While that goes on, and I think they started some conversation about, you know what, guys, just to kind of warn you and pad you before this happens, there's going to be some massive changes. But rather than deliver them in a patch or patch notes, I think patch notes nowadays, I think most MMORPGs and most forums, patch notes aren't delivered so well. And this isn't me insulting whoever puts the patch notes out at all, because I can't imagine a worse job in the entire fucking world. But delivering, have the patch notes as they are now. To be honest, ESO's patch notes are pretty good the way they're set out. But I feel like leading up to that point, some communication in terms of, and the PTS is good that it's existing because people can play these up until release and whatnot. But not a lot of people get onto the PTS, let's be honest.
Not nearly enough.
Not at all.
Not enough.
And you know, so those things don't get tested to the max anyway. Some kind of reading form, example and videos of what this ability does now to compare to what it does in the future. I realize this is a lot of production time. And obviously time is something, you know, time is money. But communication of these things is very important. Not only does it, you know, not stifle, but it, you know, releases some of that anxiety that you at least know what to expect, but then can be like, right, this is what this ability does now. It does this later on in the patch. This is where we see it going. How do you guys feel about this? And obviously, you know, releasing that on the forums is a thing in itself. You know, maybe even news posts, I don't know. That's a lot of information to get out there. But I feel like a little bit of more of a to and fro conversation would be good in terms of, you know, how, and maybe they can tell you how they get to these decisions, like completely. And, you know, obviously we know because we speak to them in different places, you know, stream team, whether or not it's that, like that place, or if it's at events and everything else. But like a wider audience, like the vet players, you know, live streams where they can pick up these abilities and say, you know, today we're going over the Warden and, you know, its core spec, and, you know, we're going over its changes, or this weapon's changed like once a week, once every 2 weeks. These are the changes we want to do. What do you guys think? Like, here it is, you know, something a little bit more. Do you think that would be useful, or do you think that would release any? Do you think that would even help? I mean, I know communication is something where in MMOs it's very important. It's a community at the end of the day, and the community is shared with the development team. It's, you know, it's their business, but they still care about the game.
It would help, but I think it runs fundamentally against sort of a philosophy that they seem to have about how to deal with information, because. Okay. One of the goals with ESO is for, you know, the play how you want tagline, and yeah, sometimes people take that the wrong way and they think, I mean, you can do whatever you want, anything will work. But there's a lot of situations with the game where there are multiple valid solutions, and ZOS is very resistant to put out like, this is the official way to make this work, because then that will be the official way to make this work. And yeah, they just do not want that out there for whatever reason. Like I said, I think it's a philosophy thing. I don't think it's necessarily that it's a bad idea. Yeah. So having them put out videos of like, this is how this skill works in all of these different ways, that would be very useful for the community. And there are a lot of people who do that kind of thing already, but that's not something I'd ever see ZOS signing off on, like officially stamping it. They'll feature it on their website and say, hey, check out this community guide. But they're not going to say.
I'm not even sure that it would really help much. Right. Anyway, you know, I would like to be seeing these changes happen. Just if nothing else, I would just like to see adjustments happen along the way, rather than waiting 3 months in between. Complete and utter meta changes.
So you're saying, like, rather than sweeping changes, incremental changes over the period of time.
Having to wait 3 months in between combat adjustments is just too long. Like, sometimes you've got something that's completely broken, and that's the way it is for 3 months.
Well, and this correct me if I'm wrong, but this started with 1.6, didn't it?
Yeah, like, I mean, the
first year, like, the first year it was kind of like we were getting, I think, bi-weekly, or like every other week or every month we were getting updates.
I know now we've got these like once a quarter updates.
I really suspect this is a console thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm sure because of the how they get patches onto the console.
Well, they have start. You were talking about this before, and I looked into it. So there is a periods of time where they have to be like, and then maybe it's also right. Maybe this isn't right. Maybe they've got their own special deal. I don't know. But there are certain periods of time where they can only upload a certain amount. Like, right? That's right, isn't it? Like,
Yeah,
they've got
that's what I
Well,
understand.
it's also the approval process that you have to. So anytime on both Xbox and Sony, whenever any company releases a patch to go onto their servers, internally, Sony and Microsoft has to test it and sign off on it before it was allowed to go live, which throws in a serious monkey wrench, because then that would mean that console is for if they did move to. Again, I'm sure it has a lot to do with the resources internally that would be required to pull it off. Is that if you're doing incremental patches every couple weeks along the way, then your consoles are going to be a couple weeks behind all the time, and it does create a sort of rolling set of quality assurance. It increases the footprint of what they would need in order to support that internally significantly. So I get it.
Also drive customer support absolutely insane.
Yeah. So I mean, it's I don't, like I said, I don't necessarily have the answers, and maybe it's just the way that it is, and it's just going to be that way, and we just have to live with it. But I think what would help even more is internally, it seems like if you're getting back to what I was saying earlier, the combat team and the dungeon team, if you're going to be making changes over on the PvE side or on the PvP side to try to attain balance over there, that inevitably is going to create nerfs and significant adjustments on the PvE side. The dungeon team and the content creator teams over there need to be heavily involved in those discussions so that things get tweaked. Because as Jimmy JJ Shabadoo was saying, you release a patch that nerfs the heck out of all AoE ground dots, and then you release a new dungeon that has multiple fights that require large amounts of AoE damage to complete successfully. Like, when Morrowind was launched, you significantly across the board unilaterally nerf sustain, and then you release a trial that has active mechanics in it that drain your resources. God, guys, come on. Let's get it together, please. Have some communication. If the combat's going to do something over here, make sure that the content that you're creating doesn't punish the players even more than the combat changes that you just did.
There must be.
That's the kind of stuff that's frustrating to me.
So they definitely communicate, but what you're saying is maybe that something is
not enough.
Maybe
not
something
enough.
is
And that's
missing.
the funny thing, because Finn is actually in those meetings. Like, that was something we got out of him in an interview when Kyle and I were talking to him before Scalebreaker released. So Finn's actually in those meetings when they're talking about balance changes. But absolutely. Like you said, more communications would be better.
Maybe it's the power of those communications. Maybe it's like, I mean, obviously we don't know what goes on and where.
We don't know the subject. We don't know the subject of the conversations. Like, it's not subject to the substance.
Well, and the whole get good idea behind it, like, that's fine. But if less than 1% of your player base is even trying to do this content, because it's just too challenging, there's something out of balance there. That's not like, what the heck?
Is it that, I mean, I'm really paranoid about time because we've got so much to talk about, and I just want to, actually, you know what, we're going to move on, because I was going to say a point and then it would lead on to something else. What I can see is that communication, and also generally the point that combat is a big thing, balance, which is actually a big, it is the game, it's the content you do, it's the content you play. And
it's sort of in quick closure on this. I really hope that the result of this audit is that they don't have to make the massive changes moving forward. That like, if this is painful for the moment, okay, I can live with that. If the idea is that 9 months from now, the game's going to be in a state where balance changes are going to be fairly minor because they can fine tune stuff without having to just go through the whole thing by hand. That's what I hope. That's not necessarily what's going to happen, but that if that's the goal, I'm all for it.
Okay, there you go. I think, hopefully, but that's something that they need to communicate. So again, communication. And I think for the MMORPGs, when you've got community-alized and online games, which I think a lot of companies are learning, the communication is so important. That's where your game is gonna live and die. live or die. I think a lot of the time as well. Your game could be fantastic, but if you don't communicate your development process and all these different things that go on, people can get lost because they need information. It's like, I know we're married now, but when are we having kids? I don't know, maybe seems a bit deep, but it's an interesting one. Okay, so so in terms of burnout, this is what actually we were talking about before. So that's actually not burnout as well. That's actually like more of a just being put off the game.
Went off on the.
But it fits.
I think my point, what we were talking about, we were talking about like burnout, and then when you're already kind of you're already feeling that burnout, and then a patch like this comes out.
Yeah.
That really it just knocks the legs out.
Yeah.
Whatever remaining staying power you had, a lot of players are just like, oof, I'm out.
But I think it's still relevant for sure. Absolutely. It still fits.
Well, you can see it. I was looking at my stats. So on July 15th was when the patch notes were released. Okay. And up to that point, my channel was averaging around 350 to 400 viewers in the ESO directory.
No drops.
On July 15th, when the patch happened.
Yeah.
Literally from the next day, July 16th till now, dropped to 150 to 200.
Really?
Yes. You can literally see looking at my stats, you can see the ESO directory looking from for 3 months, an average of 350 to 400, depending on the month, of views in the ESO directory. And then on July 15th, the patch notes came out. And from July 16th to now, I'm now down to around 150 to 200 in the ESO directory for my, unless drops are on.
There was a big influx of creators and streamers. But are you saying that with the influx of streamers and content creators as well, and there should have been an influx of viewers back then as well, I guess, to a degree. So it should just stay the same or stay relatively the same, I guess. So is it more of because I've seen something else in the directory, and I've been looking at some stats as well, and a lot of the numbers, like some people have said that the numbers generally have been down. And I've been comparing.
They totally are. You have to. There's a couple streamers who they are that embed their streams that inflate the numbers artificially. You have to take those out of the equation. When you take those out of the equation, the numbers are off a cliff.
Yeah. And I've looked at that, but like there have been some creators that have seen the opposite in terms of some have grown, and it's like I don't know if that's because of different time slots. That might be time zones actually. That might be morning. I don't know.
Well, even when the directory is down, you can grow in the ESO directory. I'm saying that you can't, and there's people watching. There is a hardcore contingent, and if you are on a growth curve and you stream a lot, you will get the numbers. I did that. That's how when I started streaming in ESO, I was streaming 40 to 50 hours a week. I'm down to about 30 to 35 now, just because I got to sustain this. I can't do 80-hour weeks. I've got to be able to get all the other stuff done and stream. So, when you do that, if you stream in the ESO directory and you've got an audience and you're growing, no matter where the directory, because when I started streaming in ESO, there was everybody was telling me you can't get partnered in ESO and it's a dead game.
Yeah, but that's
why are you streaming this? And I was like, well, bullshit. This is the game I love to play, so I'm going to stream it. And so if you love the game and you're a good content creator and you're growing your stream, you can grow in the ESO directory. What I'm talking about is just looking at. If I look at even if you go back and you look at like Sully Gnome or Arsenal or some of these others, and you just look at the game directory, you can see right on July 15th when everything falls off a cliff.
Yeah. No, I've looked at Steam, even just Steam numbers as well, and like for the actual game, and like there's that tells a story. So I'm not disagreeing with you. All I'm doing is like, and this is chat as well. Like this isn't me. These aren't necessarily all my opinions. I'm asking questions. This is what podcasting is about. It's not about necessarily like everything I say is my opinion. It's whether or not if I don't ask the questions, we don't get the answers. And Ninja's given us a very detailed and very, very quality answer. That's the feeling. That's what it says in his stats. It says it in other people's stats. It says it on the Twitch stats for the directory. Then that's the thing. Stats don't lie, as they say. And that's the thing. Twitch
directory is not the only metric, but it is a telling sign.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And then when you look at the Steam numbers, and then you look at your own friend list, and you look at your guild list, and you start putting all that stuff together, you see the writings on the wall. People are doing something else with their time.
And then we're back to burnout again.
Right.
I'm going to throw this one out there. I think this patch might have hit at the worst possible time, because I think a lot of people are feeling a little singed after the events, especially after that anniversary event, and then this dropped. So, like, if you were not in a really good, let's say this way, if you were not in a really good state beforehand, this was not the moment for the game to say, okay, time for you to go back and start reworking stuff.
Also, WoW Classic, and I know what Ninja's, I know Ninja's face, I know what Ninja's gonna say, maybe.
Yeah. It's true. You're right.
WoW Classic came out, and it had 1 million viewers on Twitch last week.
And we're also hitting the season when all of the blockbusters are starting to come out. So there's a lot of fun stuff to play right now. It's not going to be that's happening at the same time, not just WoW Classic.
And that's an even like that goes to Stark's point as well. Like, it's not going to help. But this was only a week ago. So we can only speak for a week ago of that. So that's the continuation, right? So before that, it was still having the problems, as Ninja said. And these problems...
Massive hype with Elsewhere, huge influx of players. Yay, woo, haha, everybody's all excited. Necromancer, wee! And then this patch hits, and it's like, ugh.
Okay, that actually answers one of my questions, because that was what... is this post-X-Pack blowout? Like post-X-Pack hype, expectations...
Could be.
It's not helping,
Yeah, I mean, that is a real thing. People come back to the game. You see, like, all this influx, it's not even the game, just the game, because people want to go and check that shit out on Twitch, right?
Yeah,
because that's where people go. They don't go to YouTube anymore as much as they used to see games, because you can see that person playing the game. I mean, YouTube is edited. It's unless it's a live playthrough and you don't see any cuts in that video. That's a let's play. Twitch is let's play. It's everyone. Let's play should just
like
be
a raw let's play.
Exactly. It's just that's what it is. If you want to get the idea of the experience of the game, go to Twitch, because there's gonna be at least, even if you find the most dead game on Twitch, there's probably still one person playing it, or there's videos of people playing it. You go and see World of Warcraft Classic, 1 million plus. I want to see the latest patch in ESO. I'll just go and check out, the Elsewhere expansion. I know that at least half my viewers were Guild Wars 2 viewers thinking, I'll kind of burn out on Guild Wars 2. I want to go and check out Elder Scrolls Online. 50, 60 people didn't have the game. And that's where people go to have a look at it. So, not only is that, it's a massive influx of players to the actual game, but to the directory as well for that. So it's not even just it's X-Pack, blowout, like post hype on Twitch in the game.
Also,
and all these
with the way ESO is structured, because they do have a lot of players who simply play the overland PvE content like it's a single player game.
Right.
New release drops, they got about 40 hours of content, give or take. They play through however much of that they want, and then they move on. They'll be back for Dragonhold, but for the moment, that's 6 months. Their experience.
That's 6 months.
That's 6 months.
That's not 3 months, because we got the DLC dungeons.
Well, because they're not going to be back for the dungeons, probably.
If they're doing it in solo content, that's right.
Yeah.
And that's actually that's another point. Whereas there are other games, and again, we have to say this to the credit of ESO. The amount of updates they do bring to the game is good, but as another side to this, sometimes, and this is the counter to this, because I've heard some streamers, I'm not going to say anyone's name because I don't think that's fair, but some streamers have actually, and I've heard some streamers being very vocal about this, and it's not just 1 or 2 people, this is like 5 or 6 people who are quite big, and also lower down the directory as well, who are big, who are community members known, that say that there has been too much content released as well. Like, is that something that and it sounds weird to me, in all honesty.
I guess. I mean, everybody's valid to an opinion. I just, how can that be how can you, what?
I don't know. I know what they mean, though. I know what
too much content.
I know what they try. I know what they're alluding to. I think they're not. I don't know if they're alluding to the combination. All I can see is that content being released into an MMORPG that is a live service, as we've said. It just is, as we've said, it just is. And it's an ever-changing world, and to be immersed and feel like you're part of it it is important that you have regular updates, and it's important that you know when they're coming. Because not many people in the game moan about the fact that, other than balance, which we talked about earlier,
Actually, I'll point a finger at one though. Like, I think Destiny 2 has too much content because they turn out stuff every 3 months, and when they do turn out stuff every 3 months, there's
that breaks
a lot
the game
of
though.
attached.
That breaks the game though. That's like power. That's like that's vertical. It's
vertical.
It's to the vertical.
And on top of being vertical,
like
it's stuff that you have to commit a lot of time to grind back up through. So It's like, in that case, it's too much content, because if you walk away, you can't just come back.
If ESO did that, I mean, that doesn't happen. No, I don't think so. Unless the gear was ridiculously powerful. Like, if you don't have it, you are literally shit at the game. Like, you can't do anything. I think that's the only way it would ever be. We could compare.
Even then, collecting gear in ESO is mostly painless. Like, even when you're doing something like you're farming for an exotic set out of some dungeon, that's an afternoon. That's not. You're going to spend the next 3 months.
Yeah, you can get that blue gear up to like purple or gold or whatever. Yeah. But like, it's some specific stuff that you need, like weapons.
And if you don't like the traits, you can retrade those. Like, that's that is some grind, but you can do that in PvP. You can retrade it. So it's like,
gear is a fun one. There is some
and whatever gear you had before is still relevant. It's not like whatever is new completely replaces anything that you know what I mean. Like nothing ever comes out in ESO that's so powerful that you have to run it over something else, or else you can't complete the content.
Exactly.
So
at least if there is, it doesn't stay that way for very long.
No,
right?
That's true. Okay, so I mean, I think what I was alluding to a little bit more is as well. I just as a personal thing, I think that the amount of content that is released into the game is great. Like, in terms of DLCs, the mixture of the content, I think that's very personal to me. Maybe, we've all got different ideas. I like dungeons, I like PvP, I like open world, I like questing, I like all of these things. These are the things I will like almost equally. Cyrodiil is actually the place where I'll probably go the least, but Cyrodiil doesn't really get touched that much anyway. So,
Cyrodiil does not get touched at all.
It doesn't. It's a community-oriented piece of content, which is very much driven by them, but also, it does need to work and not be laggy as well at the same time. Which I think, hopefully, we can see that there's some future changes in that. But events, things like events in and this is also streamer burnout as well. Like actual events in the game with the event tickets. I see event as at the moment. ESO, they've done a flipping great thing. They're giving us flipping Imperial City, this DLC, they're giving it away for free. I mean, I can applaud that for a start. I mean, that's really, really good. They're giving us a complete DLC for free. If you go and play the game now, you can pick it up. You get this thing. Make sure you claim it. I don't think you get it if you don't claim it, right? You have to claim it in the store. Otherwise, I don't think you get it. But, this is a great thing. But the events for the like tickets and the mounts and stuff, I think was a really awesome idea. Get something specific for being committed to the game. Get these tickets every day. Get the mount. Get the berries and all this stuff. Are there too many events? Is it too much?
Alongside a streamer, as a content creator who's always looking for something to do, I don't mind it.
Yeah.
Because if nothing else, I can fall back on there's probably an event going on, so you go do that today. But I totally could see how, as a player who has limited time to put in the game, to feel like you constantly have to log in or you're gonna not get the thing could get tedious over time. And for a minute there, it was like every week was another event, and for like 3 months it seemed like that.
It was the Jesters Festival going straight into the anniversary, and that was, I want to say that was 7 weeks. It might only have been 6, but oh my god, what was that?
Yeah. But then there was like 2 week break, and then there was another one. I swear there was. Like it's IC's. When does IC end? What is it? Monday?
The 16th, I think.
16th, something like that. Yeah.
It's like 8 days left. Yeah.
We're gonna have Halloween. Is there one in between that? I don't even know.
Well, yeah, you've got New
yeah.
Life Festival. You've got
No, I mean he means before Halloween. I think
Oh.
there is, isn't there? There's like a anniversary or something.
there's I'm
Might
sure
be.
some
Or the
one of the
DLC.
DLCs.
Yeah, there'll be
Yeah,
an
one of the
anniversary
DLCs.
DLC. So there's that. And like you say, for a streamer, it actually isn't too bad. But actually, kind of in that events,
Yeah,
kind
it's
of
nice. Like
events
what
kind
the
of.
hell are we gonna do today? Oh, there's an event. We'll do that.
That's the problem, though. I didn't like some of them, so I was just like, I hate doing this.
Yeah.
Some of them are just really mundane, and I was like, I love the like just personally, like the dungeon one was really great. But then the
the
LFG gets
Undaunted
messed
Festival.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Undaunted and the PvP festivals, two of my personal favorites, because you can do whatever inside of that. Like you can just do dungeons and it's fun, I can do that thing. And the PvP, and I can get something continuous, like there's these fun rewards. But new DLC events are right before Halloween. Oh, there you go then. Okay. But I mean, it's just a wonder. I mean, chat as well. If you tell me, like, how do you feel about the events? I'd love to know. And maybe I can drop that in the conversation here as well. Stark, how do you feel about the events? Too many or not enough? Is it fine?
I don't think it's fine. I think the only one that really comes back and haunts me is this year's anniversary, where it was 5 weeks, because like I said, that came out of I think 7 weeks of events in a row.
Right.
Where for optimal payout you needed to be there every day, and especially with the anniversary, because half of that was RNG based. That because to collect the style pages you needed to do the event for that week or wait until the last week and hope you got that stuff when you were spamming out writs. So yeah, that was unpleasant. That was actually a rather unpleasant experience, where it was like, because you could not get enough tickets to actually collect the style pages if you wanted those, either because you have a compulsion to collect anything that's there, or because you actually like these character styles and you want that available to you. So it's like that one. If I was going to say I was having an issue with Burnout from anything this year, it would actually have been that event.
I mean, someone says, Echo just said it's the only thing that's keeping you active in your in their account right now. So it's just like, I mean, it is, I almost kind of feel a bit ridiculous, like kind of asking questions, is there too much content to play in an MMORPG? It's like...
Well, that's the problem there, though. It's not really,
it's not really
anniversary
content.
event was not content. It was just, here's stuff that already exists. Go run it again now. But whereas, like, okay, so compare this to the IC event right now. The IC event is go kill one of the boss types in the Imperial City. Like that can be one of the wandering bosses. Right. That can be one of the overland bosses that just sits in a single place, or that can be one of the sweepers up top. That's actually pretty painless, because you just, to get the rewards from the event, you just need to go in and hit one of them and then run for your life. Like that's fun. The sewers is a lot of fun with people. Now, the contrast is with the anniversary, it wasn't, okay, well, today it's PvP quests. So you go into Cyrodiil and you pick up a bunch of quests and you do as many of them as you can, because there are all these boxes that have these terrible drop rates for these pages you want. And then you do it all again tomorrow when it resets, because you're still trying to get those random things. It's not do it once, because the anniversary, like on the ticket side, was really painless. It was just log in, pop the XP doubler, eat your cake, and you're golden. If you don't care about the style pages, that's all you needed, and that was great. But if you were actually looking at these motifs and saying this, or the style pages, and saying this stuff looks really cool, that's where the wheels came off.
Good points. I mean, people are saying it. I mean, there's someone in chat, McLaughlin, sorry. I don't know how you say it in American. Hi, I'm new here. I like the events, but having the Indrik feathers / berries tied to all of them in a row, especially during the rapid fire events this spring, has been exhausting. Yeah, exhausting is actually a good way of putting that. It is. Yeah. I mean, every day at the moment, I mean, if you're not going to the IC, you're going into the dungeons to grab the tickets. You're doing the same thing every day.
I mean, as a content creator, the Indrik thing is a pain in the ass, because people are like, what are these event tickets for? And I'm like...
You have a command, right? You need a video. You need a clip for that shit, dude.
Like, there's no easy way to describe this shit at all. and you're going to be confused by the time you're done.
Tickets, feathers, put them all together. What have you got? An Indrik. Looks different every so often. Bang, got it. You need a song. Maybe you just need a song or something. I don't know. Just play it. I mean, at least it's stuff in the game. That is another thing. To continue, I just want to get a few more questions done quickly because I realized that I'm not sure how much time you guys got, but obviously I want to keep it to around 2 hours if possibly can. In terms of general burnout, and I guess this can go toward anything. And I don't know if we like the phrase burnout. I mean, people can get.
I think
feel
it's
like
the right word. I do think it's the right term.
I mean, all of the symptoms are burnout.
Okay. And there's this jaded feeling that we get, and sometimes, as streamers or, on the forum stuck or to people, when we talk about these things, it's, especially if you tout yourself as a genuine, honest streamer, and it's difficult. The reason I do that, another reason is that I'm just shit at lying. I can't do it. I'm just bad.
Yeah.
It really is the best policy sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. It's just like I can't lie very well. So if I don't like doing something, I might say, I'm not having a good time with this, but I won't shit on it completely. I'm respectful, and I think most of us are. But like, how do you combat? And do you feel like it does come out anywhere in your streams? I mean, not necessarily something you want to admit. I could admit, during some of the ticket events, I'd be logged in, I'd be doing it, and I'd be like, guys, I really hate this. I just really actually hate doing this. Like, I genuinely do, but I'm going to do it because I want the thing. But I feel like it's almost inherent of MMORPGs sometimes, to be fair. No one wants to farm like everything for this, it's almost accepted. But how do you combat like that kind of burnout? I mean, I think Ninja, you said a couple of the ways. Do you want to just remind us? Even as a streamer, and you're streaming ESO, that's where your core is. That you want to do. You need to earn money.
120 to between 120 and 150 hours a month of ESO. Is my average.
So what do you do to make sure?
I don't care who you are. If you do anything that much for 2 years straight, there's going to be periods of like, ugh, So for me, I just add in variety, for a while there, I was doing these like variety streams where I would like try to get a schedule and say once or twice a week, we're going to play a different game. But I've started to, what I do is I've been go ahead and doing my ESO stream and dealing with whatever things I wanted to get done that day, whether it's writs or pledges or get Sky or whatever I needed to do, or trials or community night, whatever it is that we're doing. I have a somewhat loose schedule of things that we're doing in ESO right now. And then the last hour or two, fire up another game. Or if I have a sponsored game, I'll schedule that on an off time when it's like a bonus stream kind of thing where I can go and play this other game and we can check it out. And I get paid to do it. Yay, that's awesome. That kind of stuff.
It's win-win, right?
I think, honestly, you really got to find some other games that are interesting and fun so that streaming remains fun. Because for me, what I've found is if I allow the burnout of the particular game to go for too long and I ignore all of those signs and I continue streaming it, then the next progression of it is resentment towards the game and resentment towards streaming in general. And that's a really bad place to be if you're a content creator.
That can happen. I've seen that happen to many people. Many people. So,
and I don't want the ESO is my favorite game. I love the game. I love the community. I've made personal friends with some of the devs. The last thing I'd want to see happen is for me to drive it to a place where I hate it. Because that would be sad. Like that would be a self-made travesty, So I've been very active and proactive about trying to find different ways to break things up so that I don't end up there. I don't want that to happen. So I'm trying to do things to protect myself from it. So I'm recognizing the signs and then I'm doing some other stuff. The Minecraft streams have been a blast. I know that a lot of my viewers are not into Minecraft, but man, is it fun. And we've got this server going where I log in after streams and I've got people from the Ninja community on there building cool stuff, and we just have a good. I'm staying up way too late and not getting enough sleep, but I don't care. It's fun. And this new game Control came out. I got a review code for that. That game is amazing. So there's these things to look forward to kind of break it up a little bit, so that you have a moment to kind of to shift gears and just change your brain a little bit, so that when you come back into your favorite game, it doesn't feel like a chore anymore, and you can get back to having fun with it again.
It's great. That's exactly, and that's just good advice, I think, for anyone that's doing anything a lot as well, rather even like just streaming. Like, it's just like anything in life, if you're doing that thing a lot, mix it up. And it is difficult, because I don't like to tell myself as any specific kind of streamer. I'm just me, but I don't stream one thing outright anymore at all. And it's especially if you're doing this as your job, it is tough to do that. I would say
it's true. I mean, the ESO community loves ESO. So if you don't stream ESO,
it's the same with Guild Wars 2 as well. It's the same with Guild Wars 2.
That's a reality.
Yeah, and you've got your people who they just come for you, but they come for you and the game, obviously. But then if the game slips, they kind of just want to keep watching the game, and that's fair enough. And we all accept that.
Totally get it. Yeah, but it's sometimes it puts you in a situation of like, I got to eat this month, so I guess I got to stream the game that everybody wants to watch.
I need to turn the
which
power on
also is puts you in a weird position. So you've got to get creative on things to do in that game, so that because the reality is, as a content creator, this is your job, and your audience is not all of them, but many of them are just like public broadcasting. They are funding your staying on the air, right? So. Yeah. Exactly. You can't ignore the fact that your core audience wants to see you play a specific game for too long, because that's
not good business.
A, doing a disservice to the people who are, funding your show, and B, it's potentially suicide to your channel. So you got to find that balance where you're staving off burnout and you're still enjoying the craft, but you can't just be like, if you allow it to get to a point where it's gotten so bad that you just can't stand to play that game anymore, then you might be too late, and
that's going to be the worst.
Get into critical mode.
Exactly. That's the worst situation you can be in. Like, rather than taking that hit for a little bit, then you've just completely screwed yourself and everything over. So you have to take those kind of hits to just accept that, in the end, this is going to be better for me, actually, as well, just generally, and the business. And what I do.
If you're not taking care of yourself, you're going to be producing shit content anyway. Exactly. Right. Yeah. So either way, it's gonna play out. So, you got to take steps. You got to do the things.
Okay. It's just good to get. It's good to get the idea to give people that personal thing of the streamer as well, because I think a lot of the times, a lot of things people say and do, don't necessarily mean it in a mean or horrible way about the game or developers or whatever. Sometimes it's just frustrations and like I said, like the burnout thing, and Ninja doesn't do that as far as I know. I'm pretty sure he doesn't. He's normally pretty uplifting. He's a sensible lad, he's doing the things. He's going and he's playing other games. Once in a while,
it comes out.
But that's just normal. That's just not everyone flipping does that. You're a
I had to
human
rage
being.
quit VMA because I realized I was getting angry at chat, which was very unfair, and I
VMA's
could just feel it welling up. I was about to lash out at anybody who said anything in chat. I was like, you know what? Let's do something else. Let's not do VMA today.
VMA is the perfect recipe for that, though, isn't it?
Yes. It really is.
It is. Every streamer. If you want to see the streamer's other side, make sure you go and check out their VMA streams. I've been there because you got backseaters, you got everything, and then you're like, but I'd say, I'm just like, guys, I'm okay at the game. If I don't do something, I'm gonna, I'm not gonna get upset, but like, it just takes me a while, man. I'm getting older. It's like, this is just the way it is.
Visibly getting angry on stream, and then you have people in chat who mean well are saying things like, calm down, relax.
Yeah, oh God, don't say calm down.
Don't fucking tell me calm down.
It's so true. Telling someone to calm down is the worst.
Calm down, Chad.
Well, it's one of those things that basically never works as intended. It was like somebody's calm down.
Yeah.
It doesn't. It
That's a
doesn't.
rallying cry for rage.
It's literally one of
Yeah.
the things I was told as a counselor, like in training counselor, was make sure you don't say calm down to people. I always just like clinical
That's the worst
advice.
thing you can do.
Don't say calm down to
Someone's not calm, is tell them to calm down.
Oh man.
Use it in a different way. I'll say a different word. Like he was saying that. It's just amazing. It's like the worst thing to say. Just can't. No, why? And it's just worse. It just made it worse.
I'll give you something to be calm
Yeah,
about.
exactly, Rita. That's right.
That's right. Come here, let me calm you down.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
fucking hilarious. It's so true though. Oh, this has been a fun one. Okay, right. There you go. That's a good way to combat burnout. Just play VMA
Yes.
and just go
Rage
go
at chat.
completely rage at chat. Oh, I'm gonna have a good laugh about that for a while. How long have we got? We've gone for 2 hours. Are you guys have things to do today, right?
Yeah,
get on with
like
life.
go to the bathroom.
Oh yeah,
How
God,
long have you been
Jesus
sitting
Christ.
here?
It's been about 2 hours. Yeah, we've been
Yeah.
live for. To just let's get into a bit of a roundup. I never get through everything anyway. Okay, I've actually covered quite a lot of this stuff. Is there anything you want to add? I mean, in terms of Stark, I didn't ask you actually, like your own personal burnout. How do you deal with that in the first place? Like, if you need to go to the bathroom, Ninja, you can go.
Yeah, I'm going to.
You don't have to. Like, Stark's gonna answer the question. I don't think you need to stand there and piss yourself. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I was wondering because it was just like, what if the dog follows him out?
Okay.
That's brilliant.
And so I don't expect people to sit here the whole time. God, this has been hilarious.
In general, I try to make sure that I'm not, well, it's not even that I try to make sure. I tend to rotate off of ESO once in a while.
Yeah.
Usually it's a couple of months a year. Like I'll be playing it most of the year, which seems weird when I say that, but it'll either get interspersed with other games or I will just straight up wander away from it for about a month or two. And that's what's happened here is it's just like I've gone off and been messing around with other games for the last month or so. And it helps because again, if you're just going to keep running yourself into the ground over anything, it's going to wear out. And I have the slight advantage that I don't need to be playing every day in front of people. Like I do need to stay up to date on what's happening. I do need to continue to play and keep track of what's going on, but I can't afford to step back and walk away for a little while and come back periodically. And so that's one of the things that's kind of funny with this batch of balance changes because I have spent some time with it and I've seen stuff that's not exactly meshing with what the community's been saying about it. The bleeds thing still cracks me up where it's like, I was abusing this 6 months ago. Really abusing this 6 months ago, and people are like, this is horrible. Nope, it's not as bad as it was. You just know that it exists now.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Yeah,
but in taking those breaks, it also means I'm exposing myself to other games, so I've got a better frame of reference for what else is out there, what can be done better, and that especially
what's being done worse, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's important.
Especially from a critical standpoint, when I'm coming back in and saying this is something about the game that bothers me, having that secondary frame of reference, looking at something. One of the ones that comes to mind actually recently is the Solstice Festival in Destiny. That's their anniversary event. And that structure was, here is this incredibly long checklist of challenges that you have to do in the next I think it was like the next 4 weeks or something when it initially started. Looking at that and then looking at ESO's anniversary event and trying to figure out why one of them bothered me when ESO's on paper looks like it's far less intensive. It's just, do these various actions, but you don't even do that for the primary progression versus you have to do this whole laundry list of things and realizing, wait a second, that laundry list of things are fixed activities that have to occur in the next month anytime I want. On my schedule, I have to perform it to a certain amount. Like, I have to get 100 kills in PvP.
Yeah.
Well, that's easy. Like, it's not, I have to do PvP matches over and over again for a week. It's any time in the next month, I have to get 100 kills and stuff like that. And looking at that and then looking back at ESO and realizing, wait a second, this is why that was bothering me. So yeah, it's really important to sort of get that frame of reference just to be able to put context on stuff. And it does help a lot with avoiding burnout.
There you go. So, like, when and the one thing I want to, as I kind of round up like this, and obviously StarCraft's got a completely different way, because obviously, like I said, it doesn't stream and everything, but it seems like, you know, it's a fairly similar way of dealing with it as well, but still remaining very much in contact with community and devs and doing what he does on the forums.
Yelling at the forums as frequently as I can until the forums get really weird.
Yeah, and there's just fire everywhere, and you know,
yeah.
there's people telling people to calm down. And he's like, "Oh
yes,
no, not here as well."
Calm down. That's actually the weird thing with the boards, like the last couple of months, because normally this happens, right? Like, especially going into the chapter. It's really the moment the chapter hits the PTS, the boards will catch fire, and usually that'll sort of quench itself once the chapter releases, and then sort of calms down from there on. This year's been on a weird tempo simply because it got started when the Necromancer was leaked, and with those initial data mines, and it hasn't really stopped since. And the fires that got started for the chapter didn't really go away. Like, those stayed mostly to the PTS boards, but at the same time that was going on in the general discussion. So it's like, this year has not been great for the forums.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know what to point out the finger out on that, because I don't think it's specifically.
Maybe that's frustration. Is it frustration mainly? Maybe that is part of the burnout as well.
It's possible, yeah. It's possible we're seeing the burnout there on a larger scale, where it's affecting.
I like how we're saying like forums on fire and then burnout. It's just like that's where the burnout's going.
In retrospect, isn't it?
Oh god, burning out the forums.
No, it's fair. Like, it comes from, we're using the same sort of idiom for this, but it's like, the fire analogy kind of works. You're not wrong.
Oh, good lord. Okay, so in general, there are some feelings of burnout generally in the game right now, for streamers, for players alike. We run our own streams. You know, Stark's on the forums. We all know this, in different points in time this happens, and all I can say is generally I feel like this happens in most games. It happens in most activities. You know, if you do something a lot, inevitably you probably like need to mix it up, and these are our ways of dealing with it. My own personal way is that I don't do something so consistently anymore that I even get to the point of being burnt out. Unfortunately, that means, you know, I have to take the hits elsewhere, and that's just, you know, I learned to accept that a long time ago, and I make up for it in other areas. It's just called evolution, and you know, working with what you've got and how you want to be and how you want to, you know, create your content as a streamer. I guess I'm talking from that specific standpoint, but just like, you know, mixing it up, doing something else. Even going to play something else, which you know might not necessarily be as good, so you can just appreciate what you've got back home almost, and then you know, because the grass is not always greener on the other side, as they say. And you know, I think with ESO there are a lot of things going on in the game at the moment which are contributing to the feelings of burnout, again in quotations, and you know, some frustrations that are going on. I don't think they're dead game issues. I think maybe there could be some things which, you know, if they don't start to look at, you know, it could get to a bit of a stage where, you know, balance things like that, and maybe specific content that people aren't happy with. But just talking about my own personal point of view, I'm extremely happy with the game. And I think I don't know if I'm a minority at the moment. And, you know, I almost feel like my opinion is that I've got still so much to do that I can't even focus on the stuff which, you know, a lot of people are having issues with. But the issues are there, and I'm very aware of them, and I respect people's opinions on those different areas. And, we all feel differently about the game. And, if we love it to the point where, anyone that says anything bad about it, we get angry at them, that kind of becomes a bit ridiculous because we are our own people.
Well, we can talk shit about our game, but somebody who doesn't play it's not allowed to talk shit about our game.
I mean, if someone doesn't play it, then of course we can jump.
That's why you'll never hear me say bad things about Guild Wars 2.
Yeah,
Right.
that's right.
Wait.
Don't start. Calm down.
I mean, but something to be said, and I actually in the streamer partner Discord, I said this to the devs. I'm impressed with how the ZeniMax team allows the stream team members and the content creators that they support freedom to discuss their opinions about the game, provided they're in a respectful manner.
Yes.
There are a lot of game companies out there that the minute that a content creator who's part of like a stream team or what have you doesn't toe the corporate line, they censor them and shut them down. Whereas ZeniMax doesn't do that. They allow us to air our grievances and discuss what we like and don't like.
Yeah.
And as long as it's on a respectful manner, they don't push back against that. And that I have enormous respect for that, because that takes a level of wisdom and patience and respect of the player base that is uncommon in a lot of game development and publishers that are out there today. So props to ZeniMax for many things, but that included for sure.
Yeah. It's important in a community as well that you have people that can be respectfully critical, because if you can't accept that criticism, even from the highest, most respected people within the community, I'm not saying we're the highest or respected, but I can say that we've got people that watch us and people that respect us for what we do. Letting those people talk is important. You're right. You're absolutely right. It is very important, and that's good. There are a handful of companies that I've worked with that don't appreciate that. I can honestly say that is difficult. And I had no qualms about having this podcast today in my head. There was a message, there was an image in my head. Maybe I could shoot Gina an email or something and just say I'm doing this podcast. But then I was like, she'd just tell me that's ridiculous. Like, just talk about what you want to talk about, do the thing, and she knows that we're going to talk about it respectfully. And there's no worry about that. And I don't think you get anywhere by just anger-fueled conversations, I mean, it's, we've talked about it critically, we've been respectful, and, we all respect each other's opinions, and I think we all have different opinions, and, that's the important thing. Oh, isn't that nice, everyone? Good stuff. Well said as well, Ninja. That's very true. But yeah, I think we're going to end there. Is there anything else you guys want to say or want to remark on that maybe I haven't picked up on in terms of, the burnout or anything else you want to mention?
Buy my merch.
Wow. Ninja. Calm down, mate. You can buy merch from Ninja614's Twitch channel. You will find his in the description. Go to his stream. You'll be able to find it. Cheeky fucker.
Oh, no, that's great.
Oh, I love it. You should have been English in a past life. Maybe you were. I don't know. Maybe you should have been born English. Were you born in England? Well, I don't know.
No, I was not. I was not born in England.
You're a cheeky blighter. Calm down, mate. Exactly. Stark, is there anything else you want to add? Do you have any merch that we can purchase?
Nope.
You don't have any merch? Oh, God. I've got merch.
No.
If you want to have a look down below, guys, we've all got merch. Go for it.
Well, thanks for having me on, man.
No worries. It's been a blast.
Conversation.
Yeah, it's a good conversation to have. It's just been a blast generally as well. It's been hilarious. So, yeah, thank you guys for coming on. We don't think we've got anything else to add to that. So on that note, I'm going to start with Stark. What do you do? Where can we find you? Where sell yourself a bit if you want to.
You can find me with Kyle Dempster on the Tenants. That comes out every Sunday, so that should actually, I think it just aired on iTunes, Spotify, wherever else you usually find your preferred podcasts.
Yep.
And then I also co-write for howtofightright.com, and that goes live usually Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We've missed a few Wednesdays recently due to various events, but you can find it there. You can find it howtofightright.tumblr.com. Yeah, your choice.
How many followers? You've got a lot of followers on there, haven't you?
Yeah, it's
I want you to tell people.
Change.
I want you to get boastful about this because this is very epic. How many followers do you have?
It's 41,000 some change on Tumblr. So this is after all the horrible things that Tumblr's done to eviscerate their community. So we got a few people looking at what we're doing.
Just a few, yeah. Bloody
Just
hell.
a few.
So go and check it out. It's good stuff. It's good stuff.
Yeah.
I've been on there. It's definitely worth a look. Okay, cool. And also the Tenants as well. It's a very good podcast with Kyle, who does come on here as well quite often. So
yeah,
definitely.
And then you can find me on Twitter at Michael J. Schwartz.
Michael J. Schwartz, that was everyone. His mic did cut out for a moment, so that is definitely the one. Wicked.
Sorry about that.
Thank you for coming out again. Appreciate it. Legend. Ninja614. What do you do? Tell us where you're from. You know, the size of your ironing board that you definitely use to iron your beard. This is a pre-podcast conversation. He doesn't use an ironing board with his beard. But sorry,
I'm
mate.
Ninja614 everywhere except Twitter.
Oh God,
Ninja_614.
Okay.
Free Ninja614 on Twitter. Yeah, so mostly I'm on Twitch, twitch.tv/ninja614. I have a YouTube channel, which is not at all gaming or streamer related, but soon TM will have streamer related content on there as I get my shit together. And then, but I'm I have an Instagram. I don't really use it. I have Facebook. I never use that. So if you want to find me, Twitter is ninja_614 and twitch.tv/ninja614. Love to have you.
Do it.
I normally stream evenings, Eastern time. So somewhere around between 7 and 9 p.m. Mondays are a hard off day.
Okay. Off Mondays, evenings Eastern from about 6 p.m. Did you say 6 p.m.? 7 p.m.?
Between 7 and 9.
Okay.
Depends on what's going on that day.
Fair play. So between 4 and 7 p.m. Pacific. There we go.
Yes.
Cool. Or, 6.
Something like that.
Something like that. Regions. GMT, work it out. It's 7 hours ahead. It's early in the morning.
Time zones.
Time zones. Oh, time zones. Okay, cool. I'm going to sell myself very quickly. Okay, I'm Jebro. I do Twitch quite often. Twitch.tv/JebroUnity. I'm on that and on everything. On Twitter, on YouTube. I put this podcast out twice weekly. We did have a 3-week break, so I apologize if you've been looking for that. Anchor's been blowing up, like ridiculous view listens on this on audio-wise. Not doing okay video-wise, but like it's more about the podcast. So share it out with your friends because many people are enjoying this, especially new players as well. So come and join the stream if you do want to come and watch that and interact with us live. We do look at the chat and talk and remark on excellent comments. So if you do want to come and join, do that. And otherwise, thank you very much for watching. If you're live here on Twitch or you're on YouTube, and thank you for listening. If you're on any of the services, Spotify, iTunes, all of the podcast things which it gets dispersed out to, which is a wide verse of places. If that's a great phrase to use, I don't think so. We've been talking about Burnout recently in the podcast, the most recent, but we did talk about earlier on why ESO over other MMOs kind of equalized it out a little bit. It started on the highs and kind of just stayed there. I guess, in a way. But now this is the time where people can wave if they are seen, and if they are not, they can also wave and just pretend or make some kind of sound in celebration of leaving this fair city. But thank you very much for Ninja's like, please end it, Jevro, shut up. I need to go to the bathroom again. Guys, thank you so much
I'm
for
hungry.
We've
See you
held him
next
captive for this long.
Indeed.
Take care,
Thanks
everybody.
for watching, everyone. Take it easy.
Bye, everyone.
And yeah.